What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. Welcome, Tom Lovett.
How's it going, everybody?
Welcome, sir. We have a lot of topics to cover. It's a huge honor to have you on, so let's get started.
Sounds good. I'm just happy to be here.
So, do you remember when you first began to stutter?
Not really. In general, I have very like bad memory of my childhood. Not bad memories. I just have a hard time like remembering things from my childhood. But I do remember. I went to a speech therapy program for a bit when I was maybe like 5 years old, I believe. So there was no like, oh, like now I've started stuttering. But it's just kind of been like my entire life. There's just always been the stutter. But there's no like decisive moment.
Does it run in your family? Are there any other family members who stutter?
No, in my entire extended family, I don't know if anyone else who also has a stutter. However, as I mentioned in some of the chapters that I've put on Reddit, my dad has similar like auditory issues that have been found in stutterers, like the inability to like listen to rapid speech very well. And then I have like poor diction, which is also like um, like tends to be a feature of stuttering, and he tends to have that sometimes too.
Um, you know, the only person in my family was is my mom, and she grew up on a farm. They would pick up cotton and watermelon, onions, and squash and whatnot, and she had a moderate stutter. However, when she was 14 years old, she told herself she's done. She had it. and and then it's gone, Tom. It's gone. I don't know, you know, girl power, the power of the mind, but I mean, she told herself that's it. She's all done. And it's like, I mean, I find that fascinating because I'm 50, about to be 51. I still have mine. So I mean, it's just curious. I know there's more research, you know, going on, but I mean, y- you know, for her, I'm at the age of 14 telling herself she's all done, and then it's just, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, so it has been like so. Most people who recover from stuttering like do so like at a pretty young age, like usually like by adolescence. In fact, like I think it's been a while since I read the studies on childhood stuttering, but I believe most who start stuttering and then recover within like 2 to 3 years, or sometimes even like a month. Um, there was a study by Patrick Finn of people who recovered like around the age of 18 and like made a like complete recovery, a complete cessation of stuttering, where like they don't even think about it, like they don't worry about it. Whereas even though like someone who's hearing me talk now might think, oh, like you don't have a stutter. It's like I do. It's just there's a lot of like background work going on to like manage my fluency. I'm always like watching and kind of like feeling for blocks as they come. So if it's some like consolation, like maybe your mom like still does have that mild stutter, but she just kind of has learned to like manage it better. And while it's maybe not as like overt and obvious, like maybe she's still dealing with it. If that makes you feel better that your mom still might be stuttering.
It does make me feel better.
It's cool. She has a stutter. It's cool.
Okay, let's move on, Tom. Okay, so you were talking about speech therapy. You had it for a brief bit. Do you think that it was helpful?
So I had speech therapy for stuttering as well as for diction. So I used to pronounce my L's and R's both came out as W's. Like that was weary scary. And that speech therapy, which I did in, I believe, elementary and middle school, that was very effective. Like my diction's got a lot better. I don't pronounce my L's and R's too poorly. But then speech therapy for like that was for stuttering. So yeah, so I did it when I was like elementary school age, and then again in high school. I again like the only memory I have like two memories of all of speech therapy of when I was very young, and one is the speech therapist showing me like a physical model of the speech system, being like, here's the diaphragm, or here's like your larynx, here's whatever, kind of explaining what was happening, and kind of that squeezing feeling in your throat. And then in high school, that experience, it definitely helped me because I had almost no ability to work through blocks. And I worked with this speech therapist for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then I think that it really helped me be able to work through blocks. And then also just like having, like, so it's funny because like when I first went, I was blocking a lot with her, but like as I started working with her, she was such a nice person that we like got along really well. And I stopped stuttering around her. Like we'd be in our sessions, and like she's trying to help me like how to work through a block, but I wasn't really blocking because I was so comfortable with her. So she had to like invent games to like try to make me block more and like stress me out. And so I'll say it was helpful, but I would say most of the fluency gains that I've made have been mostly in the past like 10 to 15 years. And I have not gone to speech therapy since then. I've done some of my own research just into like because I know in addition to having a stutter, like my diction can be pretty poor. But yeah, I think most of my improvements have kind of been just outside of speech therapy.
Well, Tom, I've had 20 years of speech therapy, Tom. So what you're hearing is 20 years of really hard work. When I went to speech therapy in the late 1970s, the bell bottoms, the hair parted right down the middle with the huge wings, yes. So when I went into speech therapy, the main of a focus was that, they wanted to get me like everybody else. They wanted to have me fluent. And so that told me in my little brain, I'm broken. I'm not like everybody else. I'm damaged, and she is going to fix me. And we had these, contraptions, these cards that had a magnetic strip on them, like a tape recorder. You know, sh- she would record me, and the card would go through the machine. Then, to add insult to injury, she would play back. It's like horrible. Horrible. Just reinforcing, I'm broken. I don't talk like anybody else. And I, and going to speech therapy back in the 1970s, Tom, let me tell you, there was no high tech, beeper or, text message. Oh, no, no, no. We had a PA speaker in every room, and the entire school would hear Pedro Peña to the counselor's office for speech therapy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, can you help Pedro out? I'm already, I have zero friends. The only people who will hang out with me are the janitors, because I would eat lunch in the janitor's closet. I mean, it's like, come on. And so um later on in my speech therapy, I was taught the mental health aspect of it, which I wish it had been reversed. I wish I had learned about how to handle bullies, how to handle stress, how to handle the, um, m- m- you know, the mocking, the teasing, um, how to handle the darkness that, comes with this. But I mean, I had that later and then I understood. I understood. And so, nowadays, I talk to a lot of people who stutter from around the world, and they're telling me that they have incorporated the mental health aspect, which I think is so important because I didn't n- 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 know how to handle life as a st- st- stutter because I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one in my whole area that had this. And let me tell you, Scott, some really hard days, some really hard days. So, I'm glad that speech therapy you know, has, you know, progressed to incorporate mental health. So I'm happy about that now.
Yeah, yeah, that's completely true. And then kind of jump ahead to on one of the studies that I mentioned in some of the chapters I sent you that there's one study by Ross Menzies where um, they split a cohort of stutterers, and like half went to a cognitive behavioral therapy program for 10 weeks before they started therapy. And so before all this started, they had everyone make a list of like 10 challenging tasks that involve speech, and then say like which ones they would do. um I think before the study started, like everyone said they do like about like 30% of those tasks. And then before even going to speech therapy, just doing uh, co- cognitive behavioral therapy, they immediately jumped up to like 80% of or 90% of their tasks. So it really is like amazing that um, the mental health side of it, and then just kind of the behavioral side of it. It's obviously like the more fluent you are, like easier, like it'll be easier to do those things. However, you don't need to change fluency at all just to be able to have like live more of life, be less stressed. And then to also jump ahead to a different study too. It's like um, the emotional toll of having stutter. Like there was one study that compared stuttering to other disorders based on like quality of life factors. And like social anxiety is like through the roof with stutterers, which is like no surprise at all, because people are like when they see stuttering happen, they just don't understand what's going on. They just like and then like so that's people who are like nice. And then we used to bring like bully type people. They have a very easy target. It's easy because you stutter, and it's hard for you to defend yourself. Yeah. So like yeah, like with so, social anxiety, about 4% of the general population has social anxiety, but 40% of stutterers have social anxiety. So that's 10 times the rate of social anxiety, which is absolutely crazy. Um, and then, yeah, just in terms of quality of life with stuttering, like it was compared in terms of like effects on your life and well-being to that of like being like on dialysis, which means being like having to be like attached to a machine like once a day. So yeah, the personal weight of stuttering goes beyond just like inability to speak when you want to speak.
Ooh, Tom, as you are talking, I am writing down notes, Tom. You are just dropping golden nuggets. Let me tell you, Tom. Right. I mean, ooh, when you talk about social anxiety, when you talk about the power of the word fear, the F word, well, this F word, fear, no one, and I mean, no one understands the power that word has over us, people who stutter. It is crippling. It's crippling. Like your correlation to the dialysis machine. It's crippling because it dictates every aspect of your life. And ooh, I mean, and okay, so here is how powerful that F word is. Fear. When I was just st- starting out in college, my major was pre-law. I love to argue. It's in me. And so I wanted to be an attorney. And so one weekend I went to the movies. I watched this movie, My Cousin Vinny. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
Ooh, okay, Tom, that's your homework. Okay, now you gave me homework. Now I will give you homework. I want you to watch that movie, My Cousin Vinny, because it completely changed my entire life. There is a scene in a courtroom. There is an attorney. He is an older gentleman like me, in the gray hair. And so he gets up, everything looks normal, quote unquote, normal. And so, he gets up and he approaches the jury box and begins his, his opening argument. And then here it comes. This attorney had a severe speech impediment. I mean, and when I say severe, Tom, I'm talking about when he's having a block, he's hitting the jury box to help him get the word out. When he's repeating, when he has repetitions, he's spitting inadvertently into the jury box. And the eyes of the jury are huge and their mouths are open. And when I saw that, Tom, I said, no, that is not going to be Pedro. This is not going to be my life. The power of fear. So that Monday morning, Tom, I walked into the college registrar's office and changed my major from pre-law to psychology. I thought I can help people, but in a different way. I mean, just think about that. That one moment in time completely changed the trajectory of my life and my career. And I mean, when you are talking about social anxiety, woo! I mean, we could be here for 8 hours and beat Joe Rogan by a landslide. But I mean, I'll just leave it there. The power of social anxiety and fear is just crippling, crippling.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so like jump ahead again to like why I started the book. So I've been on R Stutter since like 2015, on Reddit. Highly recommend to anyone who has a stutter, is interested or wants to learn more. It's a great place. And I read all these stories of people that are like suffering terribly under their stutter, and like I want to help, but like I was also like, oh, there's only like 5 people who are going to see this. Like, I don't know if I should really invest like hours and hours into this. And um, what happened January 2018? I read a post by a young man. He was like 18, and he wrote how he finished high school. He didn't get great grades, and now he was like kind of like an adult on his own. Like if with his at his peer level, he should have been going to college or working and hopefully like living on his own. But he couldn't get a job because he would do job interviews and he would stutter, and so he aimed even lower and like at easier jobs. Even then, he would get nervous, so which makes his stutter worse, and then he wouldn't get the job. So he's living at home with his parents, and like to make it even worse, his family would tease him about it, which is not helpful at all. Um, but I mean, his post was basically like, "Is this what my life is going to be like? I'm 18. Life expectancy is 80. So I might spend the next 60 years of my life feeling just completely hemmed in, like falling behind my peers, falling behind where I should be." And just like you can see like the darkness of just like, is this what my life is going to be like? And I felt that personally around like 22, between 22 24, of like, this is bad. I don't know how to get out of it. Um, I think that really stuck with me was what he wrote, like, if I believed in reincarnation, I would just kill myself and hope to be born again as someone who didn't have a stutter. And that just like, I mean, I don't like, you don't like forget that line. So I mean, at least like, and and like same thing happened again where I was like, I know just from my own personal experience, it can be really bad, and you can still like make it better, and it'll be okay. And I want to like share that, but I was just like, I can't. How do I tell the whole story? And then the next day, I had a very exciting day. Came home with a bunch of like adrenaline, started like writing out a post, and then eventually like I was like, oh, if I tell you this story, I tell you that story, this story, I tell you that story, and that turned into like me like writing the book. Um, just like because that is such a universal experience for people with a stutter, and like yeah, it can make you change your entire career path. It can knock you away from like something you're passionate about, and that's like darkness and suffering of like, oh, I'm doing this because I was too scared to do that. Like just living with that every day. Um, yeah, that's brutal.
See, and um, you know, there are now over 20,000 people in that stutter group in Reddit. Over 20,000 people. How cool is that? And I mean, like you, I hop on there and I read these stories. Oh, I mean, it takes me back to when I was in high school, those, dark days that we talked about. Um, and so just picture this: grade 1 all the way to grade 11, you have no friends because you have a stutter. So basically, you're just all alone. You go to school, your you know nerves, every organ in your body is tense because you're having a block, you're having a repetition. I mean, all day long, your organs are tense, and then your goal is you don't want to talk at all. You don't want to talk at all. And those teachers who had us read out loud, I did that one time, Tom, one time. It was horrible. You don't forget that kind of trauma. And I said, Pedro, you ain't never going to do that again. And so for Pedro, it was survival. So every time we had to read, I would raise my hand and go into the boys' restroom. I would hop into a stall, however long that I needed to. I did that all through school. And here's the power of fear again, Tom, and social anxiety. I did that in the military. I did it in college, undergrad, 4 years, and graduate school, 3 years. I would head on in to the men's restroom and hang out in a stall. In the corporate world, woo, I, I still did it, Tom, because you don't forget that type of trauma. And, you know, for me, it was called, I had to survive. But a junior in high school, you talk about the darkness. I mean, like um, that young man who had posted, on Reddit. Um, when I was a junior in high school, I mean, it was just horrible. So I reached a point. I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of the bullying. I'm tired of being picked on and beat up and kicked and called. Called everything in the book. And so one night, I went into my parents' room and I grabbed my dad's gun. It was a 38. And so I snuck out of the house and and I walked down the road. And at the end of the road, there was an overpass. So I told myself I will go under there and I will end the suffering, because it was, I mean, it was just way too much to handle. Not having any friends, not being able to do what everyone else did. And, so, I walked down that road just crying profusely, holding that gun in my hand. And so I go under the overpass. And so my goal was I was gonna climb up the incline and do it in those little spaces up there. And so as I'm heading up there, I see a homeless man. And in my area, we didn't have any homeless people at all. The whole area was oil and gas. So huge houses, I mean, Cadillacs, big dualies and everything. We didn't have homeless people in my area. So here's this homeless man, and he's walking up to me, and here I am just crying, holding that gun in my hand, and he's asking me, "What am I doing?" And I told him, "I'm done. I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of having no friends. You know, you know, life is hell." And so then he told me, he said, "No, no, 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 no. You are here for a reason. You have a purpose." And to hear that from another human being that I hadn't heard in over 10 years, I mean, to hear a person tell me that I mattered. Oh, Tom, let me tell you, whoo, to hear him tell me that I matter, that I have a purpose here on this earth. I mean, I kid you not, Tom, the darkness, it went away, and I went back home. I put the gun up. I woke up my dad. I got in trouble. I got spanked. But to hear another human being tell me that I have a purpose here, that told me that I needed to move on. You know, uh, Granted, I still had horrible days, but to hear that person that I did not know from Adam tell me that I mattered, that was huge. That was huge, and that turned my whole life around. So, you know, you know, to hear you talk about the importance of mental health and speech therapy and talking about, all of those dark times, again, I wish I had that when I was growing up. So, I'm just, I am just relieved and thankful that now they are now talking about that mental health aspect and helping those young people on Reddit. It just fulfills your heart. It really does.
Yeah. I think you said it very well. I think, yeah, people just hearing, your story, because like, I mean, I've definitely thought about suicide plenty of times, like growing up, like as like a teenager, but never really got like to that level of it. But yeah, I hope, people hear this, uh, people are going through that. Like if there was like a 13-year-old Pedro listened to this, just to hear that they're not the only ones thinking about that, I think it's really powerful.
Yes, sir. I agree 100%. So tell me about your high school days. How was high school for you with having a stutter?
It definitely affected me in classes, like in terms of having to give presentations, having to, like, read aloud. I did. I say like I mean, I was not as like satisfied with life as I have been to the past 5-10 years, but um, like I guess like it wasn't too bad because like I had sports and then I had friends that I'd known for a long time. So and the sports I played like weren't necessarily like involve a lot of talking, or even a lot of times I found like when I'm playing sports, I'm usually like so focused on what I'm doing that my speech just works anyway. So if I have to yell, "Hey, you're open," or "I'm open," like it just comes out, and because like there's like like, I'm not self conscious about it, and then like maybe there's some other thing going on neurologically. Um, but I think having those outlets really served me well. And then I guess I was fortunate that like when I was like upset or dissatisfied with life, wasn't just the stutter. It was more about like my life in general, just a good and a bad thing.
Right. And I am glad that you found sports, to help you out in school. Um, Being in a group, I think, is super important because um, my last year of school, the drama club welcomed me in, and and to have these people tell you that you're awesome, I believe in you, I got you. I mean, it's like I can do anything. I can do anything. Then when they ask you, Tom, if you want to be in a play, you're all hyped up. I mean, it's like I can do anything. Yes, I will be in that play. And then as I'm walking home, Tom, what have I done? What have I can't even say my name. I can't even order. And here I am. I'm gonna be in a school play. You talk about woo anxiety. And so I went in the next day. No, 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 I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. But they told me, no, you can do this. And we got you. So I learned all my lines. I was the lion in the Wizard of Oz in high school. And let me tell you, Tom, the moment I stepped onto that stage, I wasn't Pedro. I don't know where Pedro went, but I was that character. I was that lion. And let me tell you, Tom, to look at the people's faces in the audience when I was on stage, I delivered all my lines. I was spot on. There was no stuttering. I mean, I hit every single mark, and their their mouths were open because they know me, right? Here's a kid who can't you know say anything, and he's on stage acting in a school play for the entire school. And let me tell you, Tom, the moment I walked off that stage, the the physical actions of stepping off of that stage. Here's Pedro. And guess what Pedro does, Tom? Yeah, Pedro stutters. And so I mean, it's a head scratcher, but I'm happy that you had sports. I'm happy that I had the drama club because it helped me to grow it as a person. So yeah, ooh, I'm telling you, that is a head scratcher.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Go 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 go.
Sorry. Yeah. I'll also say like too, like those challenges, like a lot of times, like you might be like, oh, that's gonna be challenging. Like I shouldn't do that because I might stutter. But like a lot of times too, like, and this is true, like, and even when I play sports, it's like those big moments, like you're almost like so focused on doing well, and you kind of rise like to the moment, and you're so present, and so hyped up, and like, but you're hyped in a controlled way. Whereas like as opposed to this anxiety, it's just like crazy and like omnidirectional. It's going everywhere. But when you're like, I'm going to do this job, and like, yeah, like I've had those moments. Like, there's this time like I asked a girl out, and like I had to like time it, just like see her at the gym because I know, okay, she teaches a class at this time, she's off at this time, and like I had to like that day drive to like New Jersey, uh, from Boston, get the family dog, and then like have lunch with my parents, drive all the way back. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it in time, and like I really had to get this done, and like, and I saw her, but then like she like left, and I was just like, okay, where'd she go? Like, I have to go up there and ask her out, and then as I'm like I look around, like, I guess she just disappeared. Guess it's not gonna happen today. And like as I'm walking out, she like walks out the door in front of me, and then like something just came over. I was like, it's go time, and it was just like completely calm. Any feelings I was just completely gone. It's like time to execute, and like yeah, like so. Yeah, so I guess just a bit of advice for like, and with the stutter, and with just in life, it's like the challenges that scary. If you can like take them on, a lot of times it's better than like the boring day to day, because I'm probably more likely to block now when I'm just like bored or don't care than like during a big moment, because I know how to handle big moments now. Like when I'm bored, that's when I'm not paying attention, I'm not trying as hard, and that's when I'll block more often.
See, um, there is a book out by Mel Robbins called the 5 second rule. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's your homework. All right. That's your other homework. So I read that book. I mean, I bought the book and then I bought it on audio, because how I learn, it's really strange. I have to hear it in the audio as I am reading it. That is how I learn. And in her book, oh, Tom, it's an awesome book. In her book, I learned, because she teaches you, I learned how to turn my anxiety and my fear into excitement. Your go mode. And once I did that, I had to learn it. I had to practice it. And once I speak on stage, once they hand you that microphone, prior, I'm anxious, I have fear, I have all of those emotions that I am familiar with. Pedro, you can't do it. Come on. Hello, you stutter. What's going on with you? However, I took all of that and I turned it into, I can't wait to hop on stage. I cannot wait to do my presentation. It's going to be awesome. And once I made that switch, like your go mode, when I went into go mode, when they handed me the microphone, it was awesome. I cannot describe it other than it's magical. I'm on stage. There's 200 people in the audience, 300 people, and I'm giving my presentation. I still stutter, Tom. I still block, but I am at that point where I am just going to enjoy the experience. And let me tell you, at the end, when they applaud and they whistle, holy mac and cheese, that is the most addictive drug. And it's like, I can't wait to do this again. I want to hear more applause. And I mean, it's, whew, yeah, go mode. Once you're in it, whew, it's all good. It's all good. So read her book, Mel Robbins, The 5 Second Rule. So I'm still waiting for her to reply on being a guest on my podcast. So I'm still hopeful. Okay. So, going back to school, do you have any advice for parents and teachers with regards to children who stutter?
I would say I mean, it's just like, I mean, I don't have kids of my own, and I don't spend a lot of time around kids, so I'm not necessarily a great resource. But I think like you probably, if a kid's like, I really don't want to today, like then that's, you should just be fine. Like, okay, cool. Like, and like the like slight bit of education about like stuttering, like it's always the there's always the potential to block. It's exacerbated by stress and anxiety. Um, I think just like knowing like just a little bit really helps. Um, but when kids like, I don't have it today, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, like it's okay to be like, okay, like just at least let them have that safety net. But at the same time, it's like in the same way that you like were like stoked about the play, and then we're like, actually, I want out. Sometimes like, hey, trust me, just go for it. Like, I know you want out, but like, just stick with it. Because there's been times in my life where I was like, I want out, and they were like, too bad, or like, no, stay with it, and it worked out for me. And you know, and I took on a challenge I didn't think I could take on, and then like I had that victory afterwards, like, oh, like I did do that, I did achieve that. And that's even true with adult stutters. There's a few studies that mention people who had that experience. But yeah, in terms of actually what to do, so I have not written the chapter on child development yet, or like kind of like what to do about it. Um, and I read those studies a year and a half ago, so it's kind of like not fresh in mind. But um, yeah, I think just, you know, like offer that safety net, but then also don't be afraid to kind of like gently nudge. But if they're like freaking out, no, 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 that day, then it's give them, you know, okay, like you don't have to. There's no point to like traumatize you over this if you're having a bad day.
Would you also give that to speech therapists?
Yeah. I think maybe for speech therapists that the goal of like having that safe zone, uh, uh, kind of like what I had in high school. Like obviously, like by that point I was in high school, so I could probably take more suffering than say maybe a 5-year-old. Um, yeah, I think just like a small amount of education and patience goes an absolute long way, which I believe almost like most good people, like almost like every good person and most people are good people would be like, okay, like obviously this is something you have to deal with a lot. I'm not going to like tease you over it. I would never like mean say anything hurtful over it. Um, yeah.
See, and that is great advice. Don't push. Don't push, because I mean, uh, when they would make me do anything, I mean, no, it wasn't. It wasn't a good outcome. Yeah, but I mean, uh, you know, I completely understand. There are days that you don't want to do anything. However, Nike has a good motto: just do it. And that's what I learned from, Mel Robbins' book. I mean, there are a ton of things that I don't want to do, but I know I have to do them. So I just do it. I just do it. I do it. And after I'm done, I feel so much better. It's like, oh, hey, I did it. Woohoo. Potty time. All right. Yes, sir. All
Mhm.
right. So,
Oh, actually, and like one last thing I thought of too is like, because like stuttering is made so much worse by stress and anxiety. If a child's like overwhelmed with stress and anxiety, they're even way more likely to block and way more likely that's going to go very poorly. So in that case, it's even a worse idea to push them if they're just like freaking out. Then it's like, okay, fine, not today, not today. That's fine. We'll move on. We'll come back to it.
right. Because, school is rough, Tom. I mean, I don't have to tell you, school is rough. You have the peer pressure. I mean, you have the hormones. And guess what? You also have a stutter. I mean, it's rough. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, don't push. All right. So let's change gears a little bit. Job wise, I know we can't really prove this in court, but we know. So, um, so have you ever experienced discrimination because of your stutter?
I don't think I have, mostly because uh, I wouldn't say anything about it. And then even the interviews I had that went very poorly. In part, I knew because of my stutter, but they just thought I just didn't have the answers or something. Um, so I wouldn't say it was overt, but I do know that after I got out of the Coast Guard and I was applying for like career jobs for like the first time, I was also applying for jobs in software development, um, which was like, you know, a huge step up for me that I was like incredibly nervous about. Uh, that like I was so stressed and worried about my speech, and my fluency was so bad on those calls. What like I wasn't necessarily like overtly blocking, it wasn't like hard blocking or having like repetitions or something. It was just like I was kind of stopping myself before I blocked, which came off kind of like janky. So it definitely does. I mean, even if the person you're talking to isn't like isn't making assumptions about you based on your stutter, like whether they know it's a stutter or not, it was definitely much harder for me. I had to work really hard, just especially at like professional phone calls, even asking like a friend, like, hey, like, can you talk with me about my resume? Um, yeah, like job interviews are very stressful. Stress makes your speech worse, and you want to use your speech to represent yourself well. Therefore, like a stutter really complicates any kind of professional like job interview or on the phone or in real life.
See, and I mean, I wrote down a ton of notes. Holy cow, Tom! You are making me work today. And so you were talking about, okay, so job wise for Pedro, it's survival. The only jobs that I knew that I could do were data entry. Back in my day, back in the 80s, um, all of the jobs were in the local newspaper, the want ads, the classifieds. So I would pull it and go through each one. 9 times out of 10, Tom, 9 times out of 10, must have excellent communication skills. I don't think so. So all those, I would have a red X. So at the end of the day, all I see is like a sea of red X's, and there were only a couple. Data entry, aka for Pedro, it's called survival. So I would do those because there's no human interaction. No human interaction. They give you a stack of work and then you do it. And you were talking about job interviews. Tom, I cannot tell you how many job interviews I have crashed and burned. I mean, hyper ventilated as to where the interviewer would give me a paper bag to breathe in. I would have severe blocks. And when I have a block, I don't breathe. My eyes are closed. And, so as you know, I'm going to lose consciousness. And it, it was just horrible, horrible. And I can't hide this. Come on. I cannot hide this, you know. And so what I had learned later in life, because, first I had to suffer. And now through all of the education and workshops and training and speech therapy. So what I have learned, I'm going to disclose. Hey, good morning. I'm Pedro. I have a speech impediment. I have a stutter. And I have a good icebreaker. If I get hung up on any word, give me 8 hours and the word will come out. But if you know what I'm trying to say, help you, help me, help you, help you, help me. And it has worked every single time. It puts everyone at ease. And now Pedro can focus on the job interview because I got the hard stuff out of the way. So, so like what you were talking about, go mode. Pedro is now in go mode, and that is how I would handle job interviews. Because it is stressful for everybody. But if you have a stutter, holy mac and cheese. And if they have you do a telephone panel job interview, Tom, I would email them, and I would have to lie. I have already accepted another position. Thank you for the offer. It's a huge lie, but for Pedro, I can only speak for me. It's survival mode. I know I cannot do a panel interview with 4 people on the other end. I can't see their faces. I don't know what facial expressions they're gonna do when I have a block or if I have a repetition. No, I'm not gonna put Pedro through all that trauma because we already found out it ain't never going to happen again. So, for me, data entry, data entry, data entry.
Yeah, like I was thinking in the Coast Guard. Hold on just a second. There's a lawnmower outside. Sorry about that. I remember I had one, like, not necessarily a job interview, but like a like certification thing in the Coast Guard, where I had to be like a helmsman and like drive the ship, which is like 270 feet, and like it was like very big deal, like because before you pass this, you're working crazy hours. After you pass that, you're now like a member of the crew. It's not so bad. And I was so nervous beforehand, and I go up and I'm like steering the ship, and I'm getting like asked questions by like 4 different people like that, and they're just, it's just rapid fire, and like they're trying to stress you out, and like obviously like at that point, I'm pretty sure they knew I had a stutter, but they didn't know a lot about stuttering. Um, so that was like incredibly stressful, and I like at one point just basically just, like lost my mind and just like lost like control. Like they like I would start talking, and then like halfway through the sentence forget what I was even saying, but like I really wanted to pass, so I just like kind of kept going. um and like I failed miserably. Like there's like one command where like the chief supposed to give you, and you go no, like you're not allowed to tell me to do that. That's kind of part of the test. But like he did, he was like hard right, so let's go wham and steer the ship to the right, and they're like you weren't supposed to do that. Like, but yeah, so I guess like in in a way, like a stutter has really helped me, because like there are those big challenge moments and there's those go moments, and like you have to be like, yes, I'm going to be stressed out, this is going to be hard, however, like I want to be as fluent as possible, even if the audience knows I have a stutter and they understand stuttering, which at this point isn't necessarily a lot of people. um, Even under those circumstances, I have to be in control. Like I'd be able to handle the stress and the anxiety and like perform in the moment. I think like like jumping ahead, I think the stutter has had that effect on me, of where like it's like I can't afford to be stressed, because if I'm stressed or anxious, I can't talk, and I want to be able to talk, so I can't get stressed and anxious, and that's like obviously easier said than done. But I've been it's encouraged me to invest a lot of time into self-management, like meditation, those type of things, where like now I'm in like situations that aren't necessarily even a speech related, but when they get very stressful, it's like I'm here, I'm in control, like I'm not phased. Like even though I'm like, okay, I know I'm stressed, I know I'm anxious, I know I'm freaking out, I know I'm like I have a lot of like negative self-talk, or just like pessimism in my head. I'm like, that's not what's like, ignore that for a second. We're just gonna get stuff done. Like so in that case, stuttering has been helpful.
So, okay, first of all, I want to thank you for your service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You were in the Coast Guard. I was in the U.S. Air Force, and um, you went through MEPS like we all did. And let me tell you Pedro's story about the MEPS. And so, um, during school, all through school, all I heard was you're slow, you're stupid, no one is going to hire you. You're never going to get married. You're never going to have a career. Just stay home and receive disability. Those monthly checks. So I heard that all through school. However, I think back to the homeless man that just popped up. I don't know what you believe in, Tom. What I believe is that God puts people in your path for a reason. That is what I believe. And so hearing that homeless man that I did not know from Adam tell me that I had a purpose, I said, I am going to join the military. I will join the Air Force. I took the ASVAB, scored extremely high, said, I'm going in the Air Force. So, you know, I get to the MEPS station, the military entrance processing, whatever. It's been a long time, 30 years. So I get there, and they test you from top to bottom. I mean, really top to bottom. And then they were asking me my name, and I had a severe block, a stutter. I had a severe repetition. And so a captain heard that. He pulled me out of line and he told me to go wait in that office. And I thought, holy cow, what? I mean, I can't go back home. It'll prove everybody right. It'll prove everybody right that I can't do this. So I was um in this office just waiting. And as at MEPS, you are just anxious and stressed out. I mean, you've done every physical test and mental test. I mean, you are just at your peak of stress. And so then here comes this captain. He has a piece of paper. And so he tells me, "You have a stutter. I want you I want you to read these 20 commands. If you can read all 20, you're in." Whew. Okay, Tom, you were talking about pressure. I had to call on the Lord, Tom. I was like, I cannot go back home because everyone will say, I told you so. I told you so. So I looked at that list and said, Pedro, you have to. Your whole everything is hinging on this. So I read the first one. I got it out. In my head, hallelujah. And then here comes number 2, number 3, number 4. I did all 20, Tom. All 20. He said, okay, you're in. But I mean, and in the US Air Force, I had the best time ever. I mean, all of my buddies were just helpful and nurturing and supportive. And when I joined in 1990, that was the start of the Persian Gulf War. So after I went to basic in Lackland, I went to Colorado Lowry Air Force Base for 9 months to learn all about bombs. I built bombs. How cool is that? And so after that, I went to Turkey during the Gulf War, and I built up bombs and missile components. And then we would put them onto a pallet, and then bind them, and then hop on a bobtail and drive out to the polite line. And the warthogs, the warthogs, those A-10s are just a marvel. So I had to talk to everybody, but it was okay. It was okay. So yeah, that's my military story. I had to fight to stay in, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Like I sent you a lot of reading from the book, but I also like sent you my boot camp story. And yeah, there was the one moment that like really stands out that I think like a lot of people like I hope can learn from is there was this like exercise. We do a piece of paper with like mark out just all the zeros. It's basically like tedious work. And there's like one little trick, which is like classic boot camp strategy. But then this is only like the second week. You have to go up one by one and present it and like hold out this piece of paper. You're saying like face to face with the company commander, and you're not allowed to look at them. They're just like staring straight at you. Hold your arm straight out and say, in my case, Pedro Bailey, Senior Recruit Lovett, I request to submit 010 slashing paper. And like say that as loud as you possibly can with him in your face, quick, as soon as you start and to say that exact phrase, because boot camp was like that, where you're given an exact phrase, and if you deviate at all, you're doing it wrong and you get yelled at. So like nervous as hell, like going up into it, and then the first time I try, like I hold it out, open my mouth, nothing, squeeze as hard as I can, nothing comes out. I try again, nothing comes out, and eventually I just like this became a joke within like our company. I just like dropped my hands. I was like, I'll just do push-ups. And Pedro Bailey was like great guy. Was just like he didn't understand what was going on. I even though I'm not looking at his eyes, like I'm kind of like blankly staring like someone like this far away. I could tell he didn't know about something. He didn't know what was going on. But I was just like, I'll just do push-ups. Like okay, like I failed, and he was just like, no, try again. And then like I did try again. And yeah, I got it out somehow and moved on. And I think one of the big things, and there's another story too from boot camp where, like I was worried, and then I failed. And it was like, oh, you failed. But as soon as you get yelled at for failing, then it's like, oh, like all the anxiety and stress goes away because you're so afraid of this thing of like, what happens if I fail? What happens if I fail? What happens if I block? But as soon as that happens, it's kind of like a relief of like, oh, like, I'm still here. Like it's not that bad. Like,
Yes, and so okay, for the record, you had a harder boot camp than I did. Okay, I will keep it real, Tom. I want to keep it real. You were in the Coast Guard. I was in the Air Force, and everyone knows about the chair force. But anyway, but in our basic training, okay, you talk about the hard times in your boot camp. In my basic training, they had me as a chow runner. Now, if you know what a chow runner is, that's when you and only you have to go and ask for a time for your squadron to eat. So here I am. I'm mortified, and you know, I march up to the table, and it's a long table, Tom, and there are TIs, all TIs, and you have to ask for a time to eat. Okay, so let me just fast forward, Tom. We were late for every meal. I'm just gonna keep it real. We were late for every meal, but you bring up a good point. I didn't die. I did it, and then I moved on. And thankfully, it was a rotation. so, so we were late to eat like for a whole week, and they got tired of it, so they got someone else. But I survived. I didn't die. Everything is okay, and then I made it. So yeah. Whew, we could tell some stories, Tom. We could tell some stories, but okay. Let's move on, Tom. All right. So let's talk about some ADLs. And these are activities of daily living. So let's talk about pre-pandemic and in the pandemic. So pre-pandemic, how did you handle telephones and how did you handle restaurants, be it in the restaurant or drive-throughs?
I'll have to say, like, my life hasn't changed too much with pandemic. I was working remote before the pandemic, so I was kind of like Zoom meetings all the time anyway. Um, and then even now, because we might talk about successful management later, but when I was younger, I'd be terrified of, or in the restaurant making phone calls. But what's kind of happened in my life is that like I've done those things enough times when they were scary that I'm now comfortable in them. And there's still a fear for sure every time, but like it's like a small, the fear is still there. It's like a little speed bump. I'm like, I know I can get over it. Like I know I can do this. I've done this before. I've done it in scarier moments. Like there's even in the first draft of the book, I opened with like just this like progression of like calling a pizza shop, because when I was a kid, I hated calling pizza place because like the one in town made great pizza, but they'd like a pizza shop for some reason, like when they answer the phone, they are not like customer service. They're just like One Tempo's Pizza, what do you want? And yeah, it's like right now, and like they want like you want to say like large pepperoni pizza, and like 15 minutes, bye. Like they want it fast. So that was terrifying for me, and I avoided it at every cost. And then maybe it was like about 6 years ago. There's now that I'm up near Boston, there's a great pizza place near me, Beacon Street Pizza, shout out. But like when I would call them, I had to be like, I had to like psych myself for like 5 minutes and be like, okay, like he's gonna pick up, he's gonna say hello, and I'm gonna say hello. I like to place an order for pickup, and he's gonna say, okay, what do you want? And then I'll say, I would like one large pepperoni pizza, and he'll be like, okay, anything else? And I'll be like, okay, that's it. He'd be like, okay, 15 minutes. I'm like, thanks. And I had to like psych myself up for like 5 minutes beforehand, and I was making the phone call. It was like like, you know, like in the book I read, like having your phone out and pressing send is like jumping out of an airplane when you're skydiving. It's like, okay, here we go. Like, but so at that time it was like a huge, like scary thing. But the fact that I did that enough times, I made those phone calls when they were scary, that now I'm just like, okay, cool. Like this is kind of within my comfort zone. There's still like little bits of fear and like a little bit of, like, hesitation about it, but it's like I can do this. And so I just kind of like lie to myself and like ahead that I'll do better than I like rationally would expect, and be like, I got this, it's fine, it's no worries. Like, yeah, I know there's a problem, but I'll be fine. Whereas like if I was being more rational, I would not be as optimistic. But yeah, it usually works out. And a lot of that is this experience of having done it, and then just knowing how to like deal with those nerves and stay calm and like lie to myself in effective ways. Not just like complete BS lying, but just like, yeah, like you can got this. You no problem.
I'm sorry. I got choked up. I apologize. Oh, okay. Okay, so my hand is tired now from writing all these awesome notes. And so telephones. Let me pick just one. I mean, your book coming out is it's awesome. Let me just pick out one golden nugget. You talk about going through an intensive program. Okay. The telephone. Whew, it was my nemesis, Tom. I could not make a phone call to save my life. I, like you, I would I would have other people make phone calls. I mean, I would pay people. I mean, it was horrible. This telephone, made up of plastic and wires, had such control over me. The F word, fear. It had such control. Until one day I said no. No. Went to eBay. I bought an office telephone that looked exactly like the ones that we had at my job at the time. And so every day, Tom, I practiced. I drew on my acting skills, from high school, my drama, my drama skills. I pretended to, ring, 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 pick up the telephone and just have a conversation. So I would, practice making phone calls and practice receiving phone calls. I would make that ring, ring, and so I would pick it up. So I did that every single day, Tom. No time off. I did it every day for hours for 6 months. 6 months. That was hard work, I mean, but let me tell you, Tom, at the end of that half year, the act of picking up the telephone, it became boring. Boring. I could make phone calls, boring. I could receive phone calls, boring. No more fear, no more anxiety. But I spent half a year practicing, Tom, practicing. And like what coaches tell you, if you're going to get better, you need to practice. And so my motto is practice doesn't make perfect, because I don't believe in perfection. Practice makes permanent. And when it came time to do it in a real world application, aka my job, I picked it up. Hey, good morning. I'm Pedro. How may I help you? And it was like, look what I did. Look what I did. It took 6 months of intensive work. And what a lot of people don't understand is this is hard work, Tom. We practice like nobody's business. My voicemail on my telephone, that took me 1 hour. It took me 1 hour. Where other people, half a minute. Not Pedro. No, I have to practice and practice and practice. But once I hit that point where I d d d oh, that D word, desensitized myself. No more fear. No more anxiety. I got this. I did it. I did it. And then you were talking about skydiving. I did that. I did that. That was on my bucket list because I told myself if I am to step out of my comfort zone and come on, the telephone, that was huge. And skydiving, that was bigger. And so I told myself, I have to do this. And so I did it. Let me tell you, it was the best experience skydiving over the ocean in Galveston, landing on the beach on my butt, a perfect landing. I mean, it was awesome. And once I did it, I told myself, like what you had told yourself in boot camp, I did it. I did it. I didn't die. Thank goodness. But it was hard, but I did it. I did it. And so you know, that's when I tell everybody, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You will have your ups, you will have your downs, but believe me, you're going to get through it. So yeah. Oof.
Yeah, and
Go.
sorry, like I'll say too, like like a lot of times, like anxiety, when you're younger, it's just like this, like all-encompassing fears. It's not even put into words. They say if you just put like your fears into words, it really helps. If you're like, I'm afraid I'm gonna make this phone call and I'm gonna block, and they're gonna be like, is anyone there? Is anyone there? And hang up on me. Is that, as long as you like spell out your fear, it makes it a lot smaller. And so it's not, a lot of people think, like, obviously I understand if your stutter is currently like severe, like it can feel like it's this impossible to do anything about it, this all-encompassing problem, but like that's not necessarily the case. And the good news is, like, yes, like you can work at it. You will always have a stutter. There's always be the potential for you to block on anything you say. However, you can get better at things. You can get better at making phone calls. You can practice. And like, yeah, like it's unfortunate that we have to work harder at certain things. But that's just our lot in life. There's way worse things that could happen to you. But yeah, you just have to work at this. And yeah, it sucks that you have to work at it. Even when we do work at it, it could still go poorly, but that's life. Like the alternative is not to try. And like, is that what you want to do? Just like have nothing? Like, so yeah, just it's not that bad, and you can work at it.
Yes, and we do not give up. That is not in our repertoire. We keep moving forward and we will get through this. You were talking about Zoom. I mean, pre-pandemic, I was getting used to talking to people face to face, Tom. I mean, I was like, "Ooh, I got this. Pedro got this." And then they tell you, you'll have to work from home now. Here is your webcam. Here is your headset. And here's the Zoom. And so I'm like, okay, hold up. I just got used to talking face to face. And now what you're telling me is that you're going to take that away. And I now have to do everything via Zoom. And so, I mean, whoo, Tom, I mean, talk about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I never did this. I mean, it's like, no, 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 no. And so how how people who stutter are, we are creative, we are resourceful, we are courageous, and we are resilient. I called up a buddy, Thomas. I said, okay, Thomas, let's practice Zoom. And so we did. We practice and we practice and we practice because I know I have to do this. I have to do this. And now, I still have my icebreaker that I use. And then I add on there, if you see me freeze, it is not my internet. It is Pedro having a block. And once I give that icebreaker, everything is okay. Everything is okay. However, what I do is on Zoom or Teams, I don't look at my video. I don't. I will look at everyone else. I will not look at myself in the video. Maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe I need to work up to it, but I don't know if that's significant, psychologically, but I cannot see my own webcam. I mean, it's just me, but I do it. I do it. I block, I stutter. It's okay. Pedro's confident. I'm going to breathe and and I will get through it because it's called survival. I got to do this. And when I do it after I'm done, woo, Pedro did it. It's potty time now. It's potty time. So yeah, practice, practice, practice. And that's what we have to do. I mean, you hit it on the head. We work 10, 20, 100 times harder than everybody else. It's what we do. It's what we do. It's called survival. All right.
It just sorry, and like
Go, 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 go.
like one last thing is like we have to work harder speech, but like like I also like like we both have vision, like we can both see things, so it's like is like a stutter worse than being blind? I'm not sure. And then that thing too about creating speech practices. The studies on successful management show that like almost all these people like develop their own version of like a speech practice. Like in your case, it was like practicing phone calls. I tend to like read aloud from books. Um, there was a girl who, when she was like, I believe in middle school or high school, would like read words out of a dictionary in front of a mirror. It's like just for like whatever reason, like because our speech systems don't work as well, it does help to like just get more repetitions. Like again, like I'm an athlete, I'm a meathead. That's what I think of. Like just get more practice, and you'll be more comfortable with it, and like it probably even improve how your speech system is firing a little bit.
See, and I mean, you hit on some other golden nuggets, Tom. Good Lord, I got goosebumps. Okay, so mirror work. I mean, I did that for years. I had to practice to say my name because, ooh, I have two P's in my name, Tom. And how I would get it out would be like a kiss, Pedro Peña. And so when I was in the military, they would say, are you kissing me, sir? No, sir. Just trying to say my name. And so I would practice in my bathroom mirror for days. Pedro Peña. Hi, I'm Pedro. Good morning. I'm Pedro Peña. And so I did that for days. I did it for years to help me out. I call it muscle memory. It helps me because when I have to do it later, bam, I got it. I'll do it. And then also reading out loud. I do that, Tom. I do that every day. One page. After I do my mindful meditation, which you write in your book, I do mindful meditation every morning. I do my diaphragmatic breathing. I do my positive affirmations, and then I read one page out loud. And let me tell you, I don't just do it for my speech. I do it for everything. The world is crazy. I need help to handle everything. My mental health, stress, everything. So for me to hear you talking about reading out loud, and I mean, I do that every day, and oh, it is wonderful. It helps me out in so many different ways. And so, I mean, I try and tell everybody mindful meditation and read out loud. There is an app that I use called Headspace. It's wonderful. So I mean, but I do that on on the daily to just help me handle everything. And so I mean, yeah, reading out loud, awesome, 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 and practicing in front of of a mirror has helped me out tremendously. So yeah. Oh, okay. So do you think that it is that it is important to have a thick skin as a person who stutters?
Yeah, like I think on like a deeper like philosophical level, as a stutterer, you face a lot more like challenging moments and a lot more like failures, like simply on account of your speech. Like I mean, I had like a few work phone calls this past week that like I did great, but I still felt a few blocks. And like I am at the place now where like I don't block nearly as often as I used to. But I think more importantly, like it's not an emotional pain for me now. I'm like it's more like frustration, like as opposed to like that deep like life altering emotion feeling. Um, and so like as a stutterer, you have a lot of challenges because like you're like, oh, I want to say something or I want to use these words, but I'm scared I'm going to block, and so you have to like surmount that fear just to get into like actually act. And I think that happens more than it would for the average person because of that. And then you also experience a lot of like failure too. Um, so I think it definitely like a stutter in a good way. It's like it's like a negative incentive in that it punishes you if you're not going to be resilient and if you're not like going to be able to like manage those unpleasant feelings. Um, but because it punishes you so much, it's also encouraging you to be resilient because there's a point to being resilient because you are going to like go through like so many hard times on a constant basis and do so many scary things and like fail socially in very obvious ways. So absolutely, you need a thick skin. You need to be able to manage yourself and manage those emotions. Like that happens to me a lot. Like I had a work call this week is even a job interview, and as it was going on, I was like, this guy's gonna fail me. I know this guy's gonna fail me. We're still like we still have like half an hour, 20 minutes. I was like, I'm not getting this job. However, like I'm still like in the moment. I'm like, well, I still want to like do a good job and like not make it socially awkward by being like, hey, dude, I know you're gonna fail me. Let's just get out of here. So, I still like experience that full feeling of like, this sucks. I wanted this job and I'm not going to get it. But even though like I felt all that, but I still was just like, outwardly composed and doing my thing and still doing like my best, almost like an athlete who's like, okay, we're probably going to lose. It's like almost certain. However, I'm still going to play as hard as I possibly can and try to score some more points. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I didn't have it in school. I mean, I internalized everything. I believed that I was slow. I believed that I was stupid. I mean, I believed everything. However, later in life, oh no, it got tougher. It got tougher. And, I had reached a point at the age of 40. I said, I'm done. I'm done. Pedro is awesome. Pedro only has a stutter. It doesn't define who I am. It's just what I have. And so if you want to make fun of me, you go on right ahead. I believe that hurt people hurt people. So if you have to make yourself feel better by making fun of me, you go on right ahead. Pedro going to be awesome. You you handle you, boo. Pedro is awesome. And once I did that, Tom, I mean like you are invincible. Like you are unstoppable. When I'm talking to people and have a block, and if I hear laughter, which I mean we know, we know, I don't even pay attention. It's all good. Pedro is awesome. If I have a block, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna breathe, and then I will carry on. So I mean, yeah. So for me, now I have a thick skin. I wish I had it prior, but like you said, it makes us stronger. It makes us more resilient. So awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, now you were in the military, so can I assume that you have partaken in some alcohol?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to make sure. I don't want to cross no lines. So as you partook in the alcohol, let me ask you this, because for me, when I have two drinks, I mean, is my limit. It's like, where did my stutter go? I mean, I am having the best time. I'm laughing, da da da. You know, my jam is rum and coke, FYI. And I mean, after two of those, I am just focused on being present and having just a wonderful time. Have you experienced that or the opposite?
No, for sure. Like, yeah, especially like after a few drinks, like you're just less self-conscious, and obviously, like being self-conscious will exacerbate your stutter, especially if you don't already have like a good grip on it. Um, yeah, so I've absolutely felt that. Um, and then I also know because I took a look at your questions earlier. Like, have I ever used that? And I don't think necessarily so. Like, I drank pretty hard in college. It's again, like, I guess I'm kind of like fortunate a position that was so socially awkward and socially anxious for like most of my I throughout high school, and then like going up to maybe like late 20s, that I like that was as much a problem, if not a bigger problem, than like my speech. So I probably used alcohol to like relax social anxiety or just like social issues. I'll also say too that after a night of like heavy drinking, like I do feel like my baseline fluency like the next morning being worse and being like, okay, my stutter is now worse than it was yesterday. I have to put like more attention into like getting the gears to work again and getting the machine up and running.
See, and the when I ask my guests this um when we talk about this topic, it's split right down the middle. Half it makes it worse, and then half it makes it better. So we're all different. Granted, we have that common D denominator, but our journeys are just a little different. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about secondaries. So I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I mean, I have been through it all, Tom. So I have learned over the years a couple of tips, a couple of tricks. Some people call them crutches, but what Pedro calls it's survival. I have used accents. It's quite lovely, to help me get out what I need to get out. Um, and there have been times when I've had a block and I tap. Either I tap my head, I tap my leg, I tap anything to help me rhythmically to get out the block. Have you ever done that?
Not, I mean, I think maybe so. Like when I was younger, and I think where a lot of that comes from, because it's a known phenomenon in stuttering. Where it comes from, things like that feeling like blocked energy of you trying to like get something out, and that energy is kind of blocked somewhere, so it kind of comes out somewhere else, and you hope that kind of like that we're like shaking your arm or something will like release tension in your throat. Um, but I think I also kind of picked up in my own experience, like this doesn't necessarily help, and like it's almost like distracting yourself from the main problem doesn't solve like the main problem. Um, so I didn't get too far into that, but uh, one thing that really helps me sometimes is like if I'm blocking on the word, to think of the word in my head and see the word spelled out, which does kind of go with some of the neuroscience, the idea that speech planning is messed up, and that if you think about it more obviously, then like your like speech system can kind of figure it out and get you over the hurdle. There was something else too, but I'm spacing. I forgot.
Oh, no, no, no. I mean, see, and that's what I used to do, Tom. Okay, let's say, okay, so we are having a conversation. So I know the words that are coming. I know them. They are on their way. So as I am talking to you, I can see the words that are on their way. And so I know that there are a couple of words that I know I cannot get out. So as I am still talking to you, I am doing in my head what what a lot of people call mental gymnastics. Um, I do, I swap out words. So as I am still talking to you in my head, I see all those words. And so as I'm still talking to you, there is a word that I know I cannot get out. So as I am still talking to you in my head, I am doing a word switch. And let me tell you, Tom, I mean, I don't have to tell you, it's exhausting. It is draining, doing that all day long, all all day long. And then to add on top of that, your all of your organs are tense. At the end of the day, I'm spent, Tom. I have nothing for anybody. I want to sit on the couch in complete darkness. Don't want to talk to nobody until the next day. But I completely, I mean, I hear you in that word is in your head and you can see it. And for Pedro, if I cannot pronounce it, I am going to switch it out as I am still talking to you. And so, yeah, it's exhausting. I'm tired right now.
Yeah, and I even I have to confess that I was going to say the word well, my like nemesis phonemes are CL and GL sounds. And so I said obviously earlier when I in my head I thought uh CLERLY. Like even right now, like, I'm blocking, just trying to say the word. And so I was like, okay, this is a nemesis word. I'm not feeling good about this. Just swap it out, even though like obviously isn't a great substitution. It's close enough. Um, so yeah, and that's from someone I've seen who like I say all these things like I otherwise manage my speech pretty well. I'm able to do a lot of things, but even then, yeah, I still have to like swap out words every now and then. Out of just and like blocking is unpleasant. It's not fun. So yeah, I still try to avoid it. Still kind of like cheat my way around every now and then.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as you are talking about blocks, I had a severe one when I was talking to a person on the sidewalk and I was having a severe block. And so when I block, my eyes close, I stop breathing, my hands go all over the place, and at one point I lost consciousness. And so when I came to, the guy that I was talking to was gone. I don't think he hung around to actually get Pedro some help. But yeah, blocking, it's oh good lord. I mean, that's a whole other podcast, blocking, because I mean it's I mean, I can only speak, for me, I mean, when I block, I mean it's a whole other experience. And I mean, it's like, okay, I have to learn to keep my eyes open. There was a guest that I had on, Mike Wilson. He brought up a wonderful point: maintain eye contact, maintain eye contact, which I had never done. When I have a block, my eyes close. And so what he taught me, because we are still learning. We learn every day. And Mike Wilson is just awesome. He taught me that I have to maintain that eye contact. And he did his own experiments, on making eye contact with like hundreds of people, you know, per day to help him out. So, today I'm still learning, Tom, how to make eye contact when I block. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, um, it's a whole other experience if you have a block.
Yep, completely. Yeah, like in the book, because I try explaining the book for people who don't have a stutter, and like it is like viscerally unpleasant. It's the best way, like because it's like it's almost like you reach for a coffee cup and like you're like I want to reach it, like everything else is fine, can move, but like you just can't get there. And like it's yeah it's like so even if your audience, the person you're talking to, is completely aware and like completely patient, it still does not feel good. It's like the other example I tried to come up with was like if you're walking through a doorway and like your sleeve gets caught on the door and you're kind of walking, like, why am I stuck? There's that weird like half second of you're like, what's going on? And then you go, oh, that's what happened. Like it's that, but like way worse, and it's up here in your body, which feels even worse. So yes, for those of you who do not know, blocking is very unpleasant.
Amen to that. Yes, sir. Now, when you were talking about your time in speech therapy, what was the most effective technique that you used to help you?
Again, I've horrible long-term memory. So I've very bad time like thinking back to like what we actually did. But I think part of it is learning not to push against the resistance of a block with more force, because that's the instinct of like of anything in life. It's like if you are trying to do something and it's pushing back on you, you just push harder. And with stuttering, it's really that's not the best way. Like if you're blocking, if you like if you just like develop that like where a mental like wherewithal and the habit of like blocking, take a half step back and try again. And that's significantly more effective. I think that's probably the best like block mitigation strategy that you can kind of like teach. Um, and then kind of jumping ahead to the book again, like speech therapy, like because people who go to like weekly speech therapy visits have a kind of mixed results. And some people say, oh, this really helps. Some people say it just didn't really do anything for me. The research shows that intensive speech therapy works, and a lot of things that they teach you to like mitigate a block, like prolonged syllables, where you speak half as slowly. Like you will be more fluent in that. However, that's hard to use in like day-to-day life because people are like, why are you talking half as fast? This is kind of strange. Um, but doing those same techniques intensively, like for like 40 to 50 hours over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, that will improve your fluency, period. Like studies show that. And it also creates like neuroplastic change in your brain. That's very helpful. So yeah, just a quick jump ahead. Like speech therapy is very effective if you do it intensively.
See, and you bring up a great point. One of my guests in our podcast interview that I will publish today, his name's Liam Snell, and he went through a 12-day intensive program. And I mean, for him, it yielded positive results. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you you talk about just doing it every day. Do it every day and every day and every day. And I mean, our brain is so powerful. I mean, it will create the pathways. I mean, I mean, it's just phenomenal, the power of our brain. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, yeah. So, um, do you experience phases in your of, of, in your fluency? Like, let's say one day you're awesome, and then the next day nothing comes out. I mean, do you experience those phases in your speech?
Absolutely. Yeah, like a lot of times I can kind of like so I can feel like my like baseline fluency and and that's kind of like try to explain to somebody. It's like this feeling of like, okay, like if I talk like where are the odds this comes out as I intend in like a normal man in like a natural flow to it. I can feel that like very like a lot, even like in the morning. Sometimes when I haven't spoken, I just kind of feel like, okay, like I'm not quite warmed up yet. And then I can feel that change with like a lot of different things, like life stress. Like let's say if I'm like under a lot of stress over a job, that's going to make it worse. If I'm tired, sometimes if I just spend like a lot of time with people, because I am like, well, I'm definitely the ambivert, where like when I'm with people, I'm like very extroverted. Let's go, let's have fun. But then like I also need a lot of alone time. And if I spend like like a 3-day weekend, let's say in a cabin with a bunch of friends, like by the end, I'm kind of worn down and my fluency, I can feel my fluency being worse. So absolutely, I feel it. Like I feel the rise and fall.
There are days where all my words come out. All my words come out. And there are people who tell me, "Are you faking this?" It's like, this is not fake news, y'all. This is not fake news. What you're hearing, is 20 years of hard work. And, for me, it's random. It's random, readily random. There's no rhyme or reason. I mean, it just happens. And so I have to tell people, you don't know what I've been through. I mean, had I not had that dog attack at age 5 years old, had I not been attacked by that dog and it jumped on me, and so I was on the sidewalk, and so my head hit the concrete sidewalk. And so after that, I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak at all due to the shock and trauma. And so then, you know, the, that's when they had, you know, you know, had me in speech therapy. So, you know, there are days, Tom, where I will just think about what if I hadn't walked home from school that day in kindergarten? What if I just had waited and had been picked up? I mean, would I even be here today with having a stutter? Now, having said that, um, there is some research that it is inherited. So, what if I was bound to get it anyway from my mother? Did the dog attack speed up the process? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's a head scratcher. Thinking about it, I will go in insane. But I try not to, think about it. But on those days where everything comes out, I am told that I just want attention. It's like, no. It's like, no. And you have you have in your book, would you wish this on, another person? No. I would not. So, why do you think that I'm making all this up? To have attention? No. No. They just don't understand. And that is why we do what we do. Our goal is, I want the whole world to know that we're here. We are people who stutter, and we are awesome. We can do anything in this world. We have a bright light, and we are going to have it shine for everybody. And so what I want is to just let the whole world know that, yeah, we have a stutter, but hey, it doesn't define who we are. It's just what we have, and we're gonna get through it. We're gonna push through because life is short. I want to enjoy as much of it as I can, and this stutter will not hold me back. Just FYI.
Yeah, and like what you said about when your stutter started. So there are like two different types of stuttering. There's developmental, which I like surely have, and then you might have because which it's more likely because your mother had a stutter, um, and then neurogenic. Like I actually met a man at a stuttering support group who was like in his 40s and had a stroke, and up till then fluent speech, and then developed a stutter. Um, and there's studies showing of like, oh, a damage in this part of the brain can cause a stutter, and that's true in multiple areas of the brain too. Um, so yeah, that type of thing can happen. Yeah, it's hard to tell like like with you unless you get put through a full brain scan with the latest technology and someone analyze the results. Yeah, and as I suppose part of the book that I want to explain to like the average person of like it's good and bad, and bad days happen. Like there was this other man at the meetup that I went to. He was like myself, like pretty fluent, like lived, he was making phone calls and stuff, and like it was a thing he worked on and had to deal with, but it wasn't like a major issue anymore. He even said like he'd be at work and he was having a bad day and the phone would ring and he would tell like his assistant like, hey, like I need you to answer this, having a bad day, I just don't want to deal with it right now. So, and then a woman in one of the studies, the successful management studies, mentioned too. She's like, some days I have bad days and I don't want to deal with it. I just if I feel it coming on, I just leave the room and let it go, and then deal with it later, or like I just don't have it with me right now today.
See, and I mean, I have those days, and then I will hear people ask me or tell me, "Don't talk to me. I want you to sing it to me." It's like, no, sir, no, ma'am, no. If I am going to tell you something, I'm going to tell you. I'm not. I mean, I've been told that I can carry a tune like. If I dream everything I want to be, if I dream all the possibilities, if you just believe in your wildest dreams, they will come true. See, I can do that, Tom.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's way better than me trying to sing, which I'll spare everyone.
But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to speak to you. All right. Because what I say matters. What I have to tell you has value. So just hang tight. Okay. You have a role. I have my role. And what I will do is I will get out what I need to get out. And what your role is in this, two-way conversation is I need your patience. I need your respect. I need your eye contact, and I need your compassion. That's all. I'm not asking for much, but in we have our roles. So I will do what I need to do to get what I want out. But what you have to do is to just be patient and have respect. Because Tom, I can't tell you how many times when I'm talking to an individual and I have a block and my eyes close, and then when I reopen because I have gone past the block, the other person's gone. Where where'd you go? And so yeah, horrible, horrible, horrible. But you know what? Life goes on. Life goes on.
Yeah, and also like say that like a lot of times like people react so strangely to stutterings because they don't understand what's going on, and they're like what are you doing? Like I can speak. Everyone else I can, and everyone else I've met can speak fluently. Words they think it, and words come out. What's going on with you? And because stuttering too, it's like it looks so different. It's you see so like it's almost like a machine malfunctioning. Um, that they're just like freaked out, like I don't know what's going on. So hopefully, like your podcast, my book would just get like I think it really takes like a small amount of understanding for like the average person just to be like, okay, cool. The example I use is dyslexia. Like I know almost nothing about dyslexia. I just know it makes it harder to read. And I thought you would see words letters backwards, which isn't actually the case. But like I don't know enough. But if a friend says, if I'm out with a friend at a restaurant and they say like, hey, like I'm dyslexic, like do you mind like reading the menu for me? I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, like no big deal, because I know what dyslexic means. And right now, like we don't have that with stuttering right now. But I think like if we do, yeah, it like just a little bit will go a long way for everybody. So hopefully our projects help with that.
And 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 they will, Tom. They will. So, all right. So here is a hot topic. So we have a couple of hot topics, but here's the first hot topic. I ask everybody from around the world, and it is split right down the middle. So let me ask you, Tom, do you let others finish your sentences?
Well, like my fluency is still like pretty good at this point, where like I usually don't hit like like a ton of hard blocks when I'm talking. Um, in the past few times that has happened in the past few years, like again, like I think it's more that I've been able to take the emotional sting off of stuttering. Like it's I get frustrated, I get irritated, but I'm not. It doesn't affect me personally as much as it used to. Um, so I when someone does, I'm just kind of like, cool, yeah, thanks. You know, like I try like move on, but I also definitely understand too someone who's like who's you know who's this fluency is still like severe, of like just that ability of like, hey, like I want to speak for myself. I appreciate you trying to help. I don't want that help. I'd rather just like get through on my own. Like it's because I was like a metaphor I've thought of for is like when you're like a little kid and you try to like jump up and get something off the mantelpiece, you're jumping and trying like 10 times and you almost got it. And then like your big brother just walks up and goes, oh yeah, here it is. It's like, I wanted to earn it. I was like this close and like, I wanted to earn it. And like, you took it away
Oh,
from me. And like, I'm not like insulted. I'm just mad because like,
yeah.
I could have gotten it myself.
I love that metaphor. I'm gonna have to borrow it, Tom. I am gonna borrow it because I mean, I can picture it. I can picture. Yes, that's what it feels like. And so when I ask people around the world this question, half, they don't want you to. You know, they will get out what they want to get out. And then the other half is like, okay, so if you know what I'm trying to say, like Pedro, help you, help me, help you. Okay, because I can't be passing out again. It is not a good look for me. But if you help me, you better get it right. Because if you get it wrong, ooh, that's going to add to my irritation, my frustration, my agitation. I mean, it's not going to be good. But but what I have learned in talking to people who study from all over the world, it is always appropriate to ask, do you mind if for some reason you have a block or whatever? Do you mind if I help you? So, what I have learned over over the years of speaking to hundreds of people who stutter, they tell me that it is appropriate to ask. Never assume, because that will just make it worse. So yeah. And for for me, I am at that age. I'm tired, Tom. I mean, I'm almost 51. I'm exhausted. So if you know what I'm trying to say, it's all good. It's all good, but you better get it right. You better get it right. That's all I'm saying. All right. So you had touched on this previously, just a little bit. Um, do you experience negative self talk? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. I'd say like right now, even though like life's going pretty decently, there's still plenty of problems. Um, but things are about as good as they've been for me. Like I still experience all the time. Like my brain just does that. Um, and the way I counter it nowadays is just kind of through like rational logic and like detachment. There's times where I'm like, I just said something stupid, and everyone's gonna think I'm stupid and an idiot. No one's gonna want to talk to me. I can be like, you've been here before. Like people haven't responded that way. The times that like I've had experiences where I literally thought like everybody hated me. I was like, those people never want to see me again. And but then like and then like as I cooled down, I saw these people later. I was like, oh yeah, like, by the way, like at that I thought you guys all hated me. I should never want to see me again. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like you're a funny guy. Like what are you talking about? Like we like you. And then also being like think of like, oh, if like, do I get that upset at anybody ever? Like especially if like a joke that fell flat, like no. um so I need like detached, um also like treat myself as a stranger and be like, if like just say like, oh, well, the average person does this and I'm doing that, therefore it's fine. When I was younger, it was definitely a lot harder. Because like at this point in my life, because I'm 35 and a little older, I've accomplished, like more things, and like my career's on the right track. I've kind of like the long-term life things are, most of them are like on the right track, and none are super bad, but maybe, who knows. But like when you're younger and you don't know if things are going to work out, and you don't know if you're like where like how, which way your life's going to go, you're like, am I going to end up like on that bad side of things, or is it going to be as good as my like mental fantasies are telling me? I think it was a lot harder to deal with it then. um and I guess, yeah, I'd recommend like meditation, because meditation is all about like learning how your brain responds normally, and like what your brain thinks, and learning like about your own like anxieties, and whatever they like your fear of what people will think of you is kind of like unique to you. And so you have to learn like, oh, that's not like a rational observation, that's just my brain putting noise into my head. um but yeah, I'll also say like, yeah, that like negative self-talk, like, it doesn't go away. I'm just kind of used to it, and I kind of just kind of laugh about it now. I'm like, yeah, I am like an effing idiot, and like, yeah, these people just, that was a stupid joke, and everyone's thinking I'm dumb, and everyone just wants me to shut up. I be able to like be like, haha, yeah, like that might be true. It's probably not true, but like that might be true.
Yeah. Ooh. Um, mind my, my negative self-talk. I named him Oscar, Oscar the Grouch. And so, growing up, he would pop up, and tell me, "Come on, you can't make a phone call. Hello, you can't talk. Put the phone down and ask for help." And then he would pop up, you can't do that presentation. So what you do is you tell the other people in the group that you'll do all the work if they speak. I mean, and Oscar would just rear his head, I mean, constantly, until when I named him. And, you know, for me, when I named that darkest fear, it no longer controlled me. And so I would tell Oscar, shut up. I'm not going to hear you. I would shut him down, and he would go away. And now I haven't heard from Oscar in a couple of years. You know, that's a good thing. However, if he does pop up, then I have a way of shutting him down. And so what I had heard from a lot of people who stutter from around the world is that they have this, and that they struggle with it, but like what I tell them, we are in control. We have the power. If he or she pops up, shut him or her down, and do your thing. And do your thing. Like what you said, you won't die of embarrassment. You won't die of anxiety. I mean, it's not going to happen. And so just do it. Nike has a great motto, just do it. And so, yeah, but mine, I'm Oscar. I mean, I haven't heard from him in quite a while, and you know what? I am okay with that. All right. So, Tom, you've had your bad days, as we all do, speech wise. But if you have a win, do you celebrate that win? Like, speech wise, if you step out of your comfort zone and you have a win, do you celebrate that?
Absolutely. Like, the way I think about it, there's kind of like a momentum meter, and every time I like run away from something for fear of stuttering, it goes back, and it gets harder to like get over it, the next time. And that in like running away usually gives me less faith in my fluency, and then I think even like makes me more, like decreases my baseline fluency, because one thing is it's you're feeding anxiety and killing confidence each time you run away. But when I go for it, yeah, like I just go like, okay, that like that's a step in the right direction. It's almost like the feeling of like doing chores. You're like, I made things a little bit better. Like just last night, I was playing ultimate frisbee and I left. And as I was walking home, there was a guy like from the game in front of me, and I just went like, I was like, oh well, this is awkward. If we just like, I'm pretty sure he knows I'm behind him, so if we just like walk, like if I walk 10 yards behind him and we just never talk, it's kind of like awkward because we're both kind of like, well, what do we do? Like, are we being friends or what? So I was like, okay, I'll just speed up and I'll just go like chat him up for like 30 seconds before we part ways again. And like I was like, and I did it, and like and because like obviously I was a little nervous about my speech coming out wrong, in addition to like walking up behind somebody and chatting them up. But I was like, after I was like, there you go, like you did it, like that was a challenge, and like like those challenges move that meter one way or the other, and like that was a victory. It was small, wasn't that huge of a deal, wasn't like a whole like holy crap type thing. And then even and then on the way back, even in later on the same as I was going home, I passed a guy, like I'm a very fast walker. He was walking with a bike, and he had like a reflector on the back that was shaped like a pizza, like a pepperoni pizza. And so like I just kind of I passed them, and I was just like, hey, that's really cool, like reflector. And just like those little victories of like, I know I want to do this. If I like lie to myself into not doing it, it's gonna affect me negatively. Whereas I just do that, and you're like, that's right. I am like, I'm outgoing, I'm social, I'm socially like capable, I'm not like socially awkward, like yeah. And that really just um I think there is like, yes, you like celebrating your own victories, and it kind of like consciously increasing your confidence. But I think also there is like a subconscious or like confidence that can't, like that you can't affect, of like, I I did it. I did it, and therefore your brain goes, oh, you are capable. Like keep going for stuff. Um,
Yes, and there is a awesome book by John Maxwell, The Laws of Leadership. And one of the laws is the law of momentum. And so at age 40, that's when everything had changed for me. That's when I had embraced my stutter, accepted it. I grieved a little bit. There was some crying and da da da. But on that day, I said, um, it will no longer, have such, control over me. And Tom, I kid you not, when I did that, decades of guilt and shame and everything left me, left me. 35 years, Tom, 35 years of guilt and shame, aggravation. I mean, rage. It all left. It all left. And a whole new world. I mean, I kid you not, Tom, a whole new world had opened up. And so I told myself that every day I need to step out of my comfort zone just a little bit, because I want to see if I can do it. I want to see. And so every day I would do something that I would, gosh, for 35 years, you know, people told me I couldn't do it, because I can't talk. So every day I did a little thing. I would talk to a stranger. I would order on a telephone. I would order through a drive-through. And when I had a win, ooh, I did a little happy dance, because every day that I had a win, I was building, I mean, to a T, what you were talking about. I was building confidence. And for the next day that I had to step out just a little bit, I would have another win and then another win. And my confidence, I mean, it just grew. And if there was a day that I failed, it's okay. It's okay. I learned from it and I had applied it to the next time. And guess what? I had a win and a win and a win. And in my head, in my brain, I mean, to hear you speak it, whoo, hallelujah. In my brain, it told me I can do that. I can do that. Whereas for 35 years, I was hearing other people tell me I couldn't. I couldn't because I couldn't talk, because I was slow, because I was stupid, because I had a form of mental retardation. But that's in the past. The past does not exist anymore. Pedro is now present, and every time that I would step out of my comfort zone and have a win, I would celebrate. Either get ice cream. It's Texas. It's really hot over here. Get an ice cream or a big old Dr. Pepper, and you hit it right on the nose. It builds that confidence and it tells the brain, guess what? I can do that. And it is the best feeling. Woo, I have I have goosebumps, Tom. It is the best feeling because I never in my entire life thought that I could do that. So I mean, you are 100% spot on. It it does build your confidence, and as it rolls on, I mean, you know, you will get better and better and better. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like like two things on top of that, like yeah, that feeling of like looking back, like oh my god, I can't believe like this is what I'm doing every day. Like it happened to me at a, a frisbee tournament like 2 years ago. Like I was I was like one of the captains of the team. We had like four or five captains for like 15 people, but like we're just like running around playing sports, cracking jokes all day, and like I'm being a captain. I'm like like managing things and like things, everyone's having a good time, and that's my job as a captain. Have as much fun as possible. Um, and I was like walking onto the field, and I was like, this is normal now. It's like this is just like every spring there's this tournament, and we play sports, we crack jokes, we have a good time. Like this is my new normal. And if you had told me when I was like 23, like this is where you'll be in like 10 years. That would have blown my mind. I like it would have been hard for me to even like believe you, or just like because like things were so dark, and I was like, there's no way I can do it. And it's going to work out. I feel like there's a lot of potential for me, but I know where I am. I know where I want to be, and just the path in between. It's like I have no effing idea how to get there, if it's even going to work. And then just to be like, oh, like that feeling of like I can do this, and that is built up on like very small, like okay, I'm kind of scared, but I'm just gonna go for it. And like yeah, if you constantly keep doing that, which is also positive for the stutter too, that like you get in the habit, like you have to push yourself. So like we talk about like things that are completely unrelated to speech at all. Like you're like, I'm scared, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, well, I got to push myself, and like you're in the habit, and you know how to do it. And then the other thing that I kind of like thought about as I was like writing the book, which I like think a lot about, like like pushing your comfort zone. It's like there's times when you do like the hardest thing you've ever done, like there's no way you can like possibly like prepare for that, because like when I was young, just as my personality, like, I like to do things when I'm very confident that it's going to work out. Like I kind of need that confidence. Like I think I see a way that I can make this work, and I feel good that's going to work out. But when you like really push yourself to something new, it's like like if you've like talked to 10 people, talking for 100 people, like that, you have no reason to believe you did it. It operated in faith alone. And like the best thing you can do for yourself in that situation is to be in the habit of taking on challenges. Like, because then you have momentum, then you have this confidence, you have this experience of like, oh, like I was scared when I had to talk to 10 people for the first time, but I went for it. I was calm, confident. I went for it, and it worked out. And now that I'm doing 100 and I'm scared again, it's like, I've done this before, I can handle it. Whereas like if you're like momentum meters in the negative of like, I run away, I get scared, I freak out, or like, I find excuses to like get out of it. That will just kill you, and you have nothing to stand on. And it is, like there is like objective truth to like, like I've been tested before, and I passed, and like I've been tested, and every time I ran away. It's like if you had to choose between those two situations, I think it's pretty obvious like which one you would choose.
Exactly. Exactly. Whew. All right. So here is another hot topic. It's a head scratcher, but it's also a hot topic. So when you are alone, can you speak without stuttering?
not necessarily. Like even now, this morning, I was reading aloud to like warm up my voice, even though I felt pretty confident, and I felt like my baseline fluency is pretty good already. I still like read aloud, and nowadays, if I'm like reading aloud on my own, my baseline fluency is good enough that like I don't really hit a lot of blocks. But when I first started reading aloud like 6 years ago ish, yeah, like I did it because I was blocking a lot at work. When the few times of the day that I did talk, I was blocking. So I would block when I was reading aloud. Um, and like a thing too, like because again, it's only because like I've spent like so much time like working on the book and thinking about it that like it does help to block in private because there's no pressure. It's not like I don't have to worry about like getting this out. I don't have to, it's just like, okay, I can like stay calm and like practice getting through it and kind of feel what's going on and like get used to that uh, situation in a safer environment. Then when I'm out in the world and I block, then I have a better idea of what's happening, what to do about it. So it'd be cool if there was some way that we would never block and never have to worry about it, but that's not happening in our lifetime, as far as I'll bet.
Yes, sir. See, and I mean, we're all different, and so when I'm alone, I still stutter. When I go over my calendar in my head, I still stutter. When I'm talking to my dog Ruby Jean, I still stutter. So I mean, when I ask, the hundreds of guests that have been on, it's split right down the middle. Half do and half don't. So it's just it's it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, like it might be more of a question, like now that I've read all this neuroscience and I see like, oh, this is how the speech system breaks down in stutterers. Like this is how speech system works, and this is where it tends to break in stutterers. It's like, okay, yes, like there's a problem in our speech system that is liable to break down at any moment. Obviously, like social situations are more stressful than being on your own, but like there's because stuttering is not like socially caused, it's not some like emotion based thing, it's like it's a neurological issue that like I'm not surprised like that I block in private.
So you were talking about this, previously. You had touched on it. Is your st- st- stutter worse when you are tired, or stress, or both, or none at all?
Definitely both. I think stress, like I I mean, if it's like a momentary stress, I'm like good at handling it because like that can be so bad for fluency that I've like invested a lot of time and effort into like being like almost like holding up stress in like a hand and be like, I know this is here, I know I'm stressed, but I'm still gonna like operate as if this like doesn't even exist. Like I'm not ignoring it. So you can't ignore stress, but like I know it's there, but I'm like I'm gonna like get the job done. Whereas like if it's like a low grade background stress, then that will definitely affect me more, and that'll affect my baseline fluency. And then of course like being tired. It's usually like not necessarily like sleepy tired or like fatigued tired, but more kind of like like if you spend like a week around say like your family and you're kind of like, okay guys, like I'm kind of over, like it's kind of tense all the time and I'm kind of over it, like that's like the tired that eats at my fluency more than anything.
And see, um, when I'm stressed, yeah, I mean, I will have some complications. However, when I'm tired, I have nothing left, Tom. I have nothing left. I mean, after a whole day of your organs being all tensed up, at the end, of the day, I don't have nothing for anybody. And so when I talk, it comes out like this. And I'm getting everything out because Pedro's tired. Pedro had a long day. He
Yeah.
trained all day via Zoom. So Pedro's tired. So everything that is coming out, it is coming out. However, when I'm stressed, Tom, woo, no. I do my breathing. I mean, one of my guests had, taught me to, squeeze my fingers, like yoga-esque things to help me out. And I mean, yeah, I have done all, all of that to help me out. Plus, I tried voodoo, Tom. I tried voodoo back in the day in my 20s because I believed that if I hand this person $40, she claims that she can cure it, So I walk in and she tells me to, hop on a chair, and she's holding over my head a rooster's claw, and she's telling me to turn around, which I do. And then she tells me, okay, so let me grab an egg and break it into a uh, uh, um break it into a glass of water. Now, if the yolk holds, I'm cured. I thought, well, yay. However, if it breaks, then no, I'm sorry. And so here I am. I'm just like, okay, don't break, don't break. And she takes the egg and she cracks it. It's a whole yolk. I said, wow. And then she goes, okay, pay me. I give her the $40, and then it's like, wow, I'm cured. Woohoo, hallelujah. I walk out super duper confident. It is gone. It's gone. And then I head on over to, a restaurant. And guess what happened, Tom? Hello, Pedro. You never left. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I mean, I tried everything, but I mean, we're all different. So, yeah, life goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that goes to that feeling too of like not knowing what to do about it, the stutter in the short term or long term, like, because everything you try, like nothing like it really works. Um, Very like similar story. The song by Parliament, like in the opening, they're like, and it is like already tongue in cheek, but like it's like if any faults, defects, like rheumatism or arthritis, I want you to put it up to the stereo. Funk not only moves, it can remove. And so like rationally in high school, I'm like, I know this is not going to affect my stutter, but like I don't know what else to do about it. And so I did it anyway. Um, but but then like the good news is, at least because there is so much research that just hasn't been translated like for the public about like what to actually do about it. And that's what's so exciting, is that like there is like, oh no, there is a plan. Like these are studies with large numbers of people doing these things, and it shows that it works if you do it this way. And and it shows like not only just behaviorally, but also with like scans of the brain showing, oh, like this thing that was operating ineffectively before, not operating or being weird, is now operating like much more like normal. And there's still like stuttering can't be like cured or like completely resolved in adults. Um, like the ideological deficits, like the core cause of stuttering are still there, but like you can adapt around it pretty well. Um, yeah, there's just so much more reason for hope now, and I think it's absolutely. I wish I wrote faster so I could get this book out and be like, here you go. Like, here's what to
Yes.
do about it.
Yes, here. Because I can't tell you, Tom. I get emails. I can cure your stutter in 3 days. I mean, I can cure it, but you have to pay me $7,000. It's like, oh, okay. Well, thank you. Have a nice day. But I can understand, because we are a vulnerable population. We are, because we want to get rid of it. However, I mean, I have spoken to, a handful of people who have used CBDs that, not the THC, but the other CBDs to help them, and they tell me the whole day they were like a zombie, and
Hmm.
then I tried Zyprexa, back in the day because I was told that it could help out. No, it didn't help. I tried Xanax, and I mean, I didn't even know what day it was. So I said, no, 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 no. I mean, for me, thank you, but no, thank you. But for a lot of people who stutter, they tell me of this new combination B12 and amyl marganon and da-da-da-da. So I tell them, if that's what you want to do, I'm happy for you because we all have our journeys. So if that's the journey that you want to take, I mean, however that I can help you or support you, I will do that. But for Pedro, no, I'm done with all of that. I am half of 100. I'm at that point where I want to enjoy my life and not have all the side effects. Because Tom, the side effects, woo, yeah, I will. No, 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 no. I prefer mindful meditation. I prefer reading out loud, and I prefer doing my diaphragmatic breathing. It's what I
Yep.
do.
Yeah, and then I'll also add if anyone's like just heard us talking about like, well, like what's the plan? So go on Reddit. My profile, I should have the game plan posted by now. So that's like what to do. Like, yes, intensive speech therapy, metronome training are fantastic uh, for bringing down like the worst disfluency. If you have severe disfluency right now, that's not a life sentence. It can be like mitigated and brought down to much more to mild, and then from mild to kind of like the successful management. Um, it's entirely possible. There's plans. There's good. Yeah, like there's no need for the older ways of doing it. Yeah, because all those drugs you mentioned, like even the ones, there's a few that are targeted more for like stuttering. Even though it's like that, I don't know how those work. They aren't super precise and accurate. And like you, I a lot of issues. I'd much rather like white knuckle it than take in some external thing. Like I like playing sports. I'm getting older now. I'm 35. Like I could take steroids and that would help my body do better for the next 20 years. However, like I'd rather just kind of like do it the hard way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you, uh, I mean, you don't want that roid rage that I hear about with all the steroids. Okay,
That
now,
too. Yeah, there's a few side effects to steroids as well. Yeah.
okay, so has this ever happened to you, Tom? Okay, let's say you have a doctor's appointment, and so you hop into the office, and there's an admin person, and they greet you. Hi, good morning. Da, 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 what is your name? And then you have a block, but I'm not talking a regular block. I'm talking this is a block, and and there's a long pause, and the other person asks you, did you forget your name? Has has that ever happened to you, Tom?
I've been very fortunate that my name Tom Lovett. Like I haven't really blocked on too much. Maybe if I start with like Lovett, I see myself like more likely to block on that. Um, it's definitely a thing that I've heard a lot of other stutterers have issues with, especially with like Pedro Peña, because a lot of stutters have issues with the P sound. So like having Pedro Peña would be really hard. Like if my name started with like CL or GL, that would suck because I mean, even I skipped a CL sound like a few minutes ago. So I've been fortunate that my parents named me Thomas and not Cleon or I'm not sure what like CL GL names.
Well, so I am
Glenn.
just
Yeah.
I'm happy that I don't have an S because it's like a tire going flat. Because let me tell you, whoo, when I recorded your intro, I said, "How all these S's in here?" I was like, "He's killing me. He's killing Pedro even before the interview." But no, 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 no. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And all right. So 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 it has happened a lot to me. I have been asked, did I forget my name? And then I just look at them. I mean, come on. The old Pedro, I would have unleashed some Texas anger on them, but no, 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 no. The new Pedro, I take the time to educate them. This is what I have. I have a stutter. So you may hear me repeat. You may hear me have a block. My eyes may close. My arms may go everywhere, but it's just what I do because I have a stutter. And so that way, for the next time that admin person, if it happens again, they will be better prepared because my motto has always been when you know better you do better. And so for me it's all about education and raising awareness, and that way everybody knows, because I still run into people who don't have a clue what it is, and they don't know how, I mean, like you said, they don't know how to respond, they don't know how to react, and so their instinct comes in and they're gone. So yeah, it's all about education and raising awareness.
That's that's good that like you're willing to actually like tell someone like, oh no, like by the way, I have a stutter because my personality is much more just like ah ha ha, like okay, and moving on.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm old now, Tom. I have all the time in the world, Tom. So I will spend that 8 minutes or 10 minutes to educate that person, and that's what I'm gonna do because Pedro has all the time in the world now. It is all good. It's all good. Okay, now, so here comes a deep question. Do you consider stuttering a disability?
I definitely consider it to be objectively worse than not having a stutter. There's like disability. I don't think it necessarily like precludes you from doing anything. It can make things a lot harder. But fortunately, like there are things within our power that we can do to like to mitigate that and get over it. It's not like I'm incapable of saying certain words. It's just like I can block. Um, so in that case, it's different saying someone who's been confined to a wheelchair because they cannot go up the stairs, period, and they need a ramp. It's like a hindrance, but not something that can stop you or that will stop you.
Right, right. Oh, thank you, sir. Now, let's talk about your career path. Did you ever think that your stutter might be a barrier?
Absolutely. Like in some ways and not other ways. Like my best friend who has a great memory and we've like known each other since we were 4. Like at one point we were talking, I was like, yeah, like I think when I get older, I want to be a stand-up comic. And he asked me like, but like, what about your stutter? And like, it wasn't like a jerk move at all. It was just like, but what about this factor? And then I guess uh, maybe just a personality thing of like if if I want to do something, I should just do it. And like there's gonna be obstacles in the way. There's always obstacles in the way. I've learned to like just deal with like, yes, there's always obstacles. There's always things in the way, things that don't make you a good fit. Like I like playing sports, however, I'm a software engineer. Like being in shape does not help at all with being a software engineer. It's and in some cases because no one else is, they then think you're a meathead or like a bro, like because you are in shape. So in that case, it's actually more of a hindrance than help. Um, but it's just like because there's people who like I do believe we all kind of do have like our niche in the world and what we're kind of like meant to do, and we kind of had to like find that. Like for me, I think like writing is what I was meant to do. And I want to like talk about it, and like I love going on podcasts, or in interviews, and like later as the book's been published, like I want to do a book tour and like talk about it from as many people as I can fit into like a venue. that's what I want to do. A stutter kind of gets in the way, and so I have to do something about the stutter. And that means like reading aloud like before an event, sure, or like, okay, like this is like it's just one of this, like stutter is one of the obstacles, and I had to like work at it, and it should not stop me from doing what I really want to do, because it would suck in itself to not be doing what I want to do, but then also have that in your head of like, because it is like a daily reminder, almost like we said earlier about switching out of pre-law. If someone asks you your major, you're like, oh, psychology, but like in the back of your head, you're like, you wanted to do pre-law and you didn't because of your stutter, and that would like just make me so mad at myself that I'd I'd have to swing back the other way and be like, fine, F it, just like figure it out, figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, how life works out. I mean, now, when people who stutter ask me what do I do for a living, I'm a trainer, so I teach people. And Tom, let me tell you, I heard people tell me, you can't do this even now. You can't. You just you can't, because you don't know how to talk. How can you teach people if you don't know how to talk? And so what I do is I like to prove people wrong. I say, if you tell me that I can't do anything now, then I am going to prove you wrong. And let me tell you, Tom, I I find joy in teaching. Oh my gosh, Tom, it is. I mean, I can't describe the feeling. It's amazing. I am teaching people. I'm training people, and I mean, at the end, when they tell you, "That was wonderful. I love your energy. I mean, you were just fantastic. This was an outstanding training." Oh my gosh, Tom. It's like I can't wait until the next one. I am ready for the next one, because I thought that I could never do this. Never. Where where I started from, this was never in the picture, Tom. Never. But now that my path has led me here, I am just enjoying the heck out of it. I find joy in teaching other people, and and to hear them give you the feedback. I mean, it's like, wow. It just it fills your heart up and tells you that I am where I need to be. I am where Pedro has to be, because now I am connecting the dots. So this is my purpose. This is my purpose on earth. I am a teacher. I am I am a trainer. I am a podcaster. I am a YouTuber. I mean, to and now I know the impact of what you and I are doing, because I mean, you you may not know this, but there are always people watching, always. And all those posts in Reddit, I mean, I read the responses to your post, and they just blew me away. I mean, so supportive, and they embraced it. And it's like, holy mac and cheese. I got to get them on this podcast. And so, w- 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 what we are doing right now, it's purposeful. I mean, we we are having a huge impact on people around the world who have a stutter. So I feel right now I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Yeah, like absolutely. Like in the months leading up to this book, um like like my life was going pretty well. Like I was, I was living around Boston. I had friends, I had hobbies. My career was like finally like I got my first job in software development. So like once you get in, that's the hardest part. I was like, cool, like I'm pretty decent at it. So I'm like, like my career is on the right path finally at the age of like 30. Um, but then like even then I was like, okay, like there's something missing, and like it's because I was single at the time, and my family, like we aren't very like uh close with each other. She went for it that time. Like I was like, oh, like that's what's missing in my life, dating. But then once I started writing the book, and like once I started like writing that post, the day after I read that other young man's post, where I was like, and like as I started writing, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was like, oh, like this has to be a book, and then like this for me too, like is like my purpose. I'm like, if I like, finish the book and get it published and people know about it, and then I get hit by a bus like the next day, totally cool, totally happy, no worries. Like I can play more I want to do, but like just the idea of like being able to help people, especially in stuttering, because like the stars have aligned that like I have a stutter, and I started the book the first 2 years. So I've been working on it now for like, almost 4 years. The first 2 years, I didn't know about the scientific research at all. I was just like, okay, just from my experience alone, I can tell you, my fluency was terrible, and I've gotten it to like good, and then like now like I'm able to do like I have to work at it, but I can do whatever I want to do. Um, just and so just to tell people who are like in the darkest parts, like it's okay, you can get out. Here's some help along the way. And now that I've seen that there's this absolute wealth of research into stuttering with like sharp, reliable knowledge about what's going on, about what's happening with it, and what to do about it. It's like this can just, there's just so much potential to like make people's lives better. Because there really is like so much suffering in stuttering. Like there was a paper by Joseph Corcoran, and he wrote like the primary feature of stuttering is suffering, and it's just suffering that doesn't have to happen, that can be like resolved or mitigated, and you can and should have faith and confidence in what to do about it. And yeah, so I feel like like part of me is like, how is this information not out there earlier? Because some of these neuroscientific studies were from like 2001. I'm like, how do we not already know about this? How do like speech therapists not know about it? How do people on Reddit not know about it? But like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they haven't been translated, because it's very hard to like write neuroscience for like a layperson. So uh, the feeling of it now is more like I just feel like very honored that the stars align, that like I get to like just share this with everybody. Because like again, like, it's not that like I did the research, but like if I can just like translate it so that it gets the word out for people who have stutter, and then hopefully explain to other people, like that gives explains something to fluent speakers who don't know much about it. Like that is purpose, and like that's been like everything else that I had that was cool before I started writing the book. If those all fell away, if I lost my friends, my hobbies, all that kind of stuff, I'd be like, but if I can sell the book, cool, 100%. I'll take that trade if I have to.
See, and I mean, you bring up great points. We'll get to the book, which I can't wait. I can't wait because I'm also writing a book, but it's based on my podcast, and so I've been at it for a whole year. It's hard work. I mean, I don't have to tell
Really
you.
effing hard.
I don't know. It is hard work, and so yeah, we'll get to that. But first, you hit on dating. Woo, dating. Okay, Tom, hold on. I gotta breathe on this one. All right. So dating is hard for everybody. But for people who stutter, it's like a million times more difficult. So, Tom Lovett, how did you handle dating with having a stutter?
So, so because I was writing the book, and one of the first parts of the book I actually wrote was stories of like me asking girls out or not asking girls out, and like the reason why it is so bad for dating is because like you obviously if you're attracted to someone, you have to have the guts to just go up and say something and make like an overt statement of like, I think you are attractive, I want to take you out on a date, which like is hard enough for anybody to do. It's terrifying. But then as you're doing that, because because you want to present yourself as well as possible, you want to come off like as well as possible. And it's also stressful, which makes you more likely to block. So if you go up to somebody and you block terribly, the odds of it working out are much lower. So that's why it's like extremely difficult for a stutterer. Yeah. And so how it's worked for me. So like I said, I was saying earlier, like I was very socially awkward, very like self-centered when I was younger, and socially awkward throughout like high school and college. But I was like so bad at being social and like even more so with girls that like I invested time and effort into getting good at socializing and at asking girls out. And so like I started so far behind, but I worked at it for so long. It was such like a big project of mine that I eventually like passed people who were like naturally sociable or like naturally like dating oriented. And like part of that was like being very focused on like asking girls out and like getting over the mental hurdle of like, yes, this is scary, but this is, like you want to ask that person out on a date. You want to go on a date with them. Like there's obstacles, do it anyway, like figure it out. And at this point in my life, like I've even like 5 years ago, like I'd done that like so many times, like I just like threw myself into the fire so many times that the mental hurdle was a lot smaller. Like obviously I still have like serious like worries about like rejection and dating, and I'm still very awkward with it. But like I'd say I have maybe like one friend who's probably like asked out more girls than I have, but like yeah, I don't mean it to be like look how cool I am, but just like a stutter doesn't have to preclude you from doing that. It's one of those challenge moments where it's like, okay, like it's game time, like the bright lights are on, like it's scary, but like execute.
Yeah, Nike, just do it. Just do it. Now, I skipped the whole dating thing. I have a BFF, and she told me, at 20 years old, I will. It is, it is my mission to find you somebody. Okay. Because with having a stutter, good Lord, I couldn't even say my name, Tom. Come on, much less Dayton. So what she did is she scheduled a blind date, and she's like, "You're going, no ifs, ands, or buts. You are going." I said, "Fine, whatever." So we went to, it was at a Tex-Mex restaurant in Corpus Christi, Ninfas, February 19th, 1995. And I walked into the door, and that was it, Tom. That was it. The eyes locked, and that was it. You just know. And this year it has been 26 years, Tom.
Congratulations.
20 awesome thing like that. And what I have learned is that the heart don't care if you stutter. The heart don't care if you have green hair or buck teeth. Don't care if you can't say your name. Love is love. They love you for you. And 26 years later, it's all good. It's all good. So what I tell everybody, just do it. You never know. You won't die from embarrassment. Hello. That has never happened before. So just do it, because you don't want regrets. You don't want regrets. And when just funny story,
Yeah.
when I worked, in the prisons, they would do tattoos. And so one guy had no regrets. Spell check. All right. Let's move on. I just had to say that. All right. So
yeah,
go.
I was gonna say, yeah, like that's like, so like spoiler alert, I tell 4 stories in the book of dating, asking girls out, and one of them, the first one, is I didn't even ask her out. I was so in my head, and for like 3 years, because like I was around her, like on like a semi regular basis. It was just awkward because I'm pretty sure she figured out like, oh, this guy's a crush on me. But like I was just like, is she is this like positive vibes or like negative vibes? Like, you know, and if I just had pulled the trigger, I would have found out like, oh, she was dating someone the entire time. Like by the time I was about to ask her, I asked one of my friends, like, hey, do you know if she's seeing anybody? She's like, she's engaged. Like, so it's like if I had just like asked her out the first time, she would be like, oh, I'm seeing someone. Like, okay, cool. But like I still think you're cool. Like, let's be friends. And like we probably would have been like great friends. But instead I just, was awkward with her and like forced awkwardness on her for like 3 years, which could have been just like friendship. Or, in the case of like dating, if I just like, who knows, maybe if she hadn't been seeing that person, and if like I waited because I was nervous about stuttering, and then someone else asked her out, and then she's dating that person, and then now, that would be a like regret that would like, oh man, like what if I just said something? Like regrets never go away. Like shame and failure, that kind of like eases over with time. Regret never goes away.
Yeah, no regrets, Tom. No regrets. Okay. And so, what do you think about all this new technology? You have Google Home, you have Alexa, and then you have one that starts with an S that will be here forever. Do you think that all this new technology is helpful or hurtful for people who stutter?
I think it depends really on how you use it. Like I can see why you'd be afraid of using it. Like I was, if I did like Google search like with voice on my phone, like I'll get that nervousness of like, oh, it'd be like "Ba-dink," and you're like, I have to go right now, and like and you stutter and you're like, it doesn't work out. But like I mean, you can use it as good practice of like, because like it will make you nervous, and you will be like afraid to talk, on the instant that it opens up for you. But like that could be practice of like, oh, like I'm just gonna practice saying like Google play Jane's Addiction, or it's like so you can use it to your advantage. Like you're not like required to use it, I think, in like nearly in almost all cases. So it can be a positive if you want to use it that way, I think.
See, and you bring up a great point. Many of the people who stutter that I ask around the globe, they tell me it helps them because they practice. It isn't a human being, and therefore it will help them to, it will help them to practice their speech. And one of the huge complaints, just like you said, they don't give you enough time. Because for Pedro, I need 8 minutes to breathe. And if you can't give me that 8 minutes, it's like, oh, sorry, didn't hear that. Please repeat. It's like, oh, like, no, I'm sorry. But here, I don't know if you know this, Tom, but there are a couple of universities who are creating an artificial intelligence algorithm to help people who stutter with this new technology. I have been a part of two collegiate studies to help people who stutter with this new AI technology. So I think that is fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, like yeah, like, I'm like well, only because I'm of the mindset that like I think like we can get everyone's disfluency down to mild or better, um, and yeah, like just go for it anyway because like like Google Voice does not care. It has there's no like it won't bully you, it won't mock you. It's literally like a computer program. It's in your like the emotional pain of like I blocked and it didn't work. That's something that you do have a say over, and you need to be like, ah, crap, and just do it again.
And again, and again, and again. Yes. Okay, now, speech wise, what is a challenge that you had to overcome and how did you do it?
Um, I will say out of like laziness that I do I've quite a number of stories in the book. Like a lot of it is research and kind of explaining stuttering, but there's also a lot of like personal stories. I'd say like like a great one would be my experience of boot camp, because leading up to boot camp, I was living on my own, and like I finally like started getting like on the right track as an adult when I was about like 24. I was much more independent. I had hobbies. I was making friends. Like I was kind of living more of a life that I wanted to for the first time, as opposed to being like sunken deep in depression and not really going anywhere. So like my fluency was getting better up until boot camp. And then when I went to boot camp, just the overwhelming stress, and then the just like logistics of boot camp and how they like, you must say everything in a script on a moment's notice under extreme like duress. That like knocked me out of my fluency and knocked me in the habit of like running away. Like I tell in boot camp how like they would ask a question in class, and I would like be like, oh well, like I'll wait a second to see if anyone else has the answer, and then like and like after that I'll like raise my hand, which is just myself like lying to myself and giving me excuses and believing it. Oh, I'm not ready yet. I see another few seconds, and then I'll be ready to speak. Which got me into like stress, anxiety, lack of confidence, which is like all like like understandable in that kind of situation. But I then had to like get my way back onto like positive momentum, which was hard because there was no like easy practice. Like I couldn't just like read aloud in a corner for 20 minutes because our days were scheduled down to the minute, constant stress. Like there was, I couldn't like sing in the car. I couldn't like sing on my own to work on my fluency. So I had to like dig myself out the hard way, like inch by inch. And like I was able to do that. It's possible. Like I think, it's pretty rare that you would be in a worse situation for like getting your fluency or your confidence back, because it had to be all the hard way. And then, like by the end, like I had some serious victories. Like there was times where I was, people had a low opinion of me. Our CCs were like there's one I mentioned. There was like our CCs were like we had four, and three were absolutely great human beings, like who just they were acting mean and acting tough when they really just wanted you to like, grow and become a better person. And the fourth was an actual bully, and he picked me out and like and gave it to me. So despite all these like how hard it was and how hard it was to get myself going in the right direction, like I still found a way and started going in the right direction, and had some like really big victories that even today I'm proud that I somehow did that in the moment. Like, yeah.
How cool. Ooh. Okay, now, do you think it's okay to stutter, or is it important to keep chasing the fluency gods?
So I have like the mental goal of being perfectly fluent and not having to use like any crutches or anything like that. Excuse me. But that's not like that's the goal that I tell myself, but I know that's not possible. But I think that's still a good like uh, uniting principle, or like a good aim. And then one thing from the research that they've shown on successful management, that it's better to aim. It's you should judge yourself on failure to try rather than failure to be fluent. So if you're like, oh, I want to raise my hand in class, but I'm worried about stuttering. If you like don't raise your hand, like you didn't stutter, but like that was a worse failure than if you had raised your hand and stuttered, because at least if you raise your hand and stutter, at least you tried. And then who knows, you might raise your hand and it goes well, and then you're like, oh sweet, I just won twice. I raised my hand and I was fluent. Like, so I think that's because that actually happened on Reddit, because there was a redditor who reached out to me and was like, oh, like hey, like, I'm trying to be perfectly fluent. I was like, it's not the research. I know why you think that way, and I agree to a degree. However, it's probably more effective to just judge yourself on how often you try rather than how often you're fluent.
Awesome. Ooh, that's a good answer. Now, here's a deep question. So, what has your stutter taught you?
Uh, I kind of like touched on this earlier, but I think like self management. So ADD is a comorbidity of stuttering. Like there's a huge overlap of people with a stutter who have ADD. Like I forget the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's like over 90%, if not everybody. So I've ADD, and then I have very like intense like emotions, and they be kind of like volatile. Like I'll be like super high and super low, and like that's not helpful either. Because after a while it's just kind of like emotional noise and just kind of going back and forth, up and down. Like that's not helpful. It's very like even keel. So because both of those things, like kind of like untreated, or it's kind of like left to their own devices, make my stutter worse. I was just like, okay, I need to like get a hold of those so that I can just be more fluent. And doing that, so like it's hard to start and stick with meditation because it is boring, and like the positives aren't necessarily that obvious for everybody. They say you're like you have better like emotional resilience or whatever, but like it may be hard to appreciate that. Whereas because I'm constantly in these situations of where like I want to say something, I'm stressed out, but like I should be like focused, like in those go moments, like focused and like executing those go moments. That like my stutters like give me a lot of practice on that and a lot of incentive to stay centered. So like I've like friends or people I've seen around that I'm like, I'm pretty sure he and I are very similar on the inside of like we both have like ADD and we get very like intense at times, but like they might not have the same filter that I have. So like they might say something that unkind, or they might flip out, or they might get angry. Whereas I'm able to be like, okay, like I know you feel that way. I know you want to yell at that person, but don't yell at that person. Like stay with it. So because this is like a chapter I'm working on now. It's like in a sense, like my stutter, like in those moments where I'm able to like stop myself from acting in unhelpful ways. It's like that's my stutter making me not talk, but for good reasons, as opposed to like my stutter not letting me talk. It's just like I've learned to decide when and when not to talk.
Oh, how cool that is interesting. That yeah, extremely interesting. Um, so what advice would you give to another person who stutters?
So this is also like hopefully we answered better in the book. But so from like reading the research, I think we can break this stuttering experience down to three different like kind of like levels, like uh, moderate to severe disfluency, mild disfluency, and successful management. And going from like each one to the one above it, there is kind of like a path that the research lays out. So if your stutter is moderate to severe, there are speech practices you can do that will increase your fluency. And like this will be on Reddit. It'd be called the game plan, where you should either do intensive speech therapy followed by a maintenance program lasting about a year. And you should include therapy as part of that, and like which a big part would just be acting more in the world. So cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective for that. And then if you like work on your own, you can do like metronome therapy, where you read in time to a metronome. And there's more details about that, which would be on Reddit, and that will increase your fluency. And then if your fluency is mild, you just have to start doing things that scare you and get the habit of doing things that scare you and expand your comfort zone. There's like going from calm this fluent, I can do like most of what I want to do, to like I'm just living a full life. I have a stutter, it's there, but it's not. But it's just a thing I have to like monitor and deal with, but it's not like ruining my life or like stopping me from doing anything. It's like the only way through that is to do those hard things, like is to go in those go moments, like to do things you're scared of until they don't scare you. But then like once you've done those hard things, like you earn the victory. Like no one else can solve these problems for you. Like once you do it, like you've made it for yourself and you've made your own life better.
Ooh, that is awesome advice. Woo. Okay. Okay, now here's our last question. And we have almost reached the 3 hour mark, aka Joe Rogan territory. Joe Rogan podcast territory. So here we go. Okay, Tom. So if you had the
I'm feeling good.
I mean it I mean woo, I am like at 100 100% right now. I mean, I am thoroughly enjoying this conversation. So if you had the opportunity to be on the world stage, Tom, and to give the world insight about stuttering, what message would you convey?
I mean, it's kind of a cheating answer, but like that's basically like the entire book. That's like there because there are a lot of things that I want to say about stuttering. Just to explain, because I still like believe that like, most people are good, and most of the adverse reactions to stuttering are just like lack of knowledge. Like people just don't know. In the same way that dyslexia in the 80s, like like kids my age, kids your age, it's like they were put in special ed because they couldn't read. Everything else is fine. They just couldn't read. It's only because teachers, parents didn't know about dyslexia. But now that people do, like a teacher who knows of dyslexia, like about the same amount that I do, can go, oh, this I have a student who's doing everything else great, but they're having problems like with written assignments. Maybe I'll have them examined for dyslexia. That's basically like the small baseline knowledge about stuttering that can make a huge difference on the lives of people who stutter. Just because it's like, oh, like I understand what's going on now, lessen the like social pain that stutters I've like experienced. Like that, like 40% of like stutters having social anxiety. Um, but yeah, like I've like like you said, like writing is very hard, and this book has been an absolutely incredible like boon to my life. But it's also like incredibly difficult. I've been working very hard at it. There's a lot of stories in my life that have been like drawing up and just trying to like share the experience of like what it's like, this kind of internal like machinery that's going on this entire time where I'm thinking more about my speech, whereas to the outside observer, like they have no idea I'm even doing that. Like I was amazed. I've told a few friends about the book. I was like, yeah, like, I have a stutter, and they're like, you have a stutter? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, are you just kind of like being nice, saying that you didn't know I have a stutter? And they're like, I genuinely did not know you had a stutter. I was like, yeah, and I mean that even happens to me. Like I've been, yeah, it's like there's this whole other. It is kind of like it's a podcast I like by Eric Weinstein called like the Portal. It's like a portal into a different world of like, oh, this is going on during my life all the time, all the time. Like like if someone's like, oh, you want a podcast? I'm like, yes, but I also like read for 20 minutes out loud before that, make sure my speech was doing better. Even the whole time I'm worried about like is my speech going to work out? Um, but I mean, again, like I would not wish to stutter on anyone, but I think the experience of stuttering is so interesting, and I hope just like to convey that to people, because yeah, it's something that people have no idea. Oh, and then just one other thing that, again, the ADD, here it is. It happens now. Like I'm thinking about stuttering every day for almost 4 years. Like it's constantly on my mind, like stuttering. And even then, I'll be watching podcasts, and I'll be like an hour or two in, like to a podcast, and then like the person will like will block, and I'll like, was that a stutter? And I'll like rewind and be like, that person, like I had no idea that person has stutter, and like this is like a famous person who's out and about living. Like I won't say these people that I've kind of like picked out on my own because they're not out, but Shaq. Shaq has a stutter, and I didn't know that until I was on the stuttering website, and I was like, me like one of the most charismatic people on the planet, like has a stutter. I had no idea. Also Elvis and Marilyn Monroe. So, yeah, I'm working very hard writing a book. I would love nothing more to get it finished tomorrow and get it out there. But I hope when it does, it just, yeah, it doesn't take much to really like educate the average person and make stutterers' lives a lot better.
See, and that is a great message. And then to piggyback on what you were talking about, we know, if I'm hearing or watching a podcast and there's a little hiccup, I know, oh, he also stutters, or she stutters, because I mean, we're attuned, you know to all of the behaviors, either positive or negative. We know, oh yeah, he's having a block. So yeah. And so Shaquille, I have reached out to his people, so I'm waiting to hear back. Him and Mel Robbins. So I'm just waiting. All right. So let's talk about your book. The due date, the title. I mean, I am just intrigued. Go.
Sure. So, due date. I was reading my old Reddit post from 6 months ago where I was like, I hope January 2020, 2021, 2022. Now I'm thinking like maybe summer 2022. Most of the chapters I'll be posting online on Reddit for free, so you can at least get the information sooner. And then if you once it's published, if you don't want to, if you can't afford like $20 or you don't want to like risk it too soon, you can read. You'll be able to read most of it online. Um, the original title was "Living on the Tightrope" because like stuttering is kind of like living on a tightrope, and that's a metaphor that I think describes it very well because um like if I because I is like if I walked on like a slack line, like I'm terrible at it, I would, even on a short one, I'd fall off 2 or 3 steps because I don't know how to do it. And if that's how you speak your entire life, that's terrifying, and you can't speak in your like because there's people like the young man I read who I referenced earlier, like he was holding on for dear life. He was, the darkness was there, and he didn't know if it would ever get any better. And that's like one way of living with a stutter. It's one possibility that happens to people. There's also people that like are kind of like sitting on the tightrope. They're kind of like maybe not making progress like with their stutter. Like they're not in the worst areas. They've probably been there. They know what that's like, and they're like, I don't want to take risks because I know how bad it can be, and I don't want to like. A lot of people don't want to take on the challenge because they're like, well, if I fail, then I fall down there. And like, is there even a reward for doing the right thing and taking on the challenge? But then there are people that can like walk on a tightrope as if it was a sidewalk. They're like it can be done. Like here we are having a great podcast talking for several hours, even though we have a stutter. Like it can be done. And these famous people who are being famous and like doing crazy things and talking all the time, even though they have a stutter. So it can be done, and it can be done like gracefully. But at the same time, like even though like, oh wow, the person walking on a tightrope, it's so great. But like every step, they're still like, watching every step and minding their balance and like making small corrections. Like so, in the same way, like minding your balance, sort of speech and speech management, but also like personal management, like self management. Because like it's still very easy to fall off, but it can be done. So yes, the original title would have been "Living on the Tightrope." Current one is like it's a lot more drier. It's not as like beautiful and metaphorical. Is This fluency causes, effects, and countermeasures of developmental stuttering. So it's not very sexy, you know, but it's also like reflects more the research that so when I first found this research January 2020, I was like, oh my god, because like I had no idea there was any of this information even out there. Like it was always like like uh there is no known cause of stuttering, or like there's no known cure. There's basically no information about stuttering. Is what like the party line everywhere you went was. And then I found out like no, there's a lot of information about stuttering. So I like just burned down the whole book. I saved all my old drafts, but I had to like rewrite the book from scratch, and I've been doing that since. I've about 4 chapters done now. There's a lot I can recycle, but that's kind of state of the book now, and I'm working as much as I can. I pay the bills, so I still like code for a living, but I try and put as much of my brain cells as possible into writing the book.
Well, let me tell you, I will be the first one to buy it. Once it posts, Pedro is going to be there. Ooh, I am Air Force, so we're tactical. I will plan this out, and the moment it posts, I am, I'm, I am there, Tom, because my my motto is help one another. We are here to support each other however that we can, and you best believe me that I will get the word out. And when you are on your book tour, think of Pedro. Okay, so I want to bring you back, and we are gonna have that book out there to everybody around the globe in 58 countries on 6 continents. So, I mean, believe me, if you are talking to Pedro here, I will get the word out, sir. So, I mean, we have been talking for over 3 hours and 10 minutes, aka Joe Rogan. So, I want to just
New
thank
record.
you. Yes, we have woohoo, we have made history, Tom. You and I have made history. A 3 hour plus podcast. I don't think it's ever been done. So woohoo! I'm so happy. So I want to thank you, Tom. This has been a fantastic conversation. You are hashtag inspirational, hashtag courageous, and you are awesome. And I believe there's healing in sharing. So I want to thank you for sharing your story with me and with everyone around the globe. So I have the best listeners. Let's say they wanted to reach out to you. How would they do that?
Like first, let's say this has been like it's great to be on the show. Like, thank you so much. I think you're doing a great job. Your story about like being like ready to commit suicide. I think that's really going to resonate with a lot of people. So that's very brave of you to share that story. But if people want to find me, I'm on Reddit. I have a private profile, obviously, but my public-facing one is also Tom Lovett, ALSO Tom Lovett. And then I also stream on Twitch. So if you want to come watch me play video games, you can chat back and forth then. My handle is Funk and Coffee, Funk_and_coffee, two of my favorite things in life. So yeah, drop by anytime. Like we might be talking about like video games, but there's a chat functionality. You can ask any question, like totally down, happy to talk about it whenever. Yes. And then, like I was saying earlier, if you go to my profile on Reddit, you can see my posts. There'll be more information there about the book and the information that I'm kind of conveying, drafts of chapters, and the game plan, which is again I'm not peddling any of the products that I recommend. I don't offer intensive speech therapy. I don't offer metronome therapy. This is just what the science says works, and I'll lay out how you can do it on your own in best details, whatever works for you. Like say because if you like working with people, you can do intensive speech therapy with people, or if you just like do things on your own, there should be programs that you can do a similar training on your own. I think I want everyone who is suffering under their stutter to know that there is hope. There are ways to do it, and that you really it won't go away, and you'll always have to work at it, and you'll still take losses, but it can be done. And there's nothing stopping you from wherever you want to be. If you want to be a salesperson and make phone calls all day and you have a stutter, entirely possible. Get after it, kick ass.
All right, sir. Awesome. Again, thank you. Man, I've had the best time. And so I hope down the road, come on back and
Absolutely.
I mean, we will go over the book. And I mean, I just want to tell you that you are an awesome and courageous and inspirational human being. So I want to say thank you for being out there, for for being a bright light, because that is what we need, Tom. We need more bright lights out there, because there are a ton of us out there, and many are lost and they need help to find their way. And your book and your message, I mean, is just the brightest light. So I just want to say just one more time, thank you so much. I hope you have an awesome day. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.